Yes, we are on. Okay, I have no actions to report out of closed session. We do have a couple items considered in closed session for action in open session. I need a motion on student readmission case number 2016-17-23.
Move to accept the recommendation with the placement of Elsie Allen.
Second.
Okay, moved by Director Medina, seconded by Director McCormick. Roll call vote, please.
Director Medina?
Aye.
Director McCormick?
Aye.
Director De La Cruz? Director Manieri?
Aye.
Director Fong?
Aye.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
President Close?
Aye. Okay, that motion carries. And now I need a motion on student readmission 2017-18-09.
I move to accept the recommendation of the panel for case 171809.
I second.
Moved by Director Manieri, seconded by Director De La Cruz. Roll call vote, please.
Director Manieri?
Aye.
Director De La Cruz?
Aye.
Director Fong?
Aye.
Director McCormick?
Aye.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
Director Medina?
Aye.
President Close?
Aye. Okay, that motion carries. Bringing us to C4, statements of abstention. Seeing none, C5, adjustments to the agenda. C6, board member requests for information. C7, approval of minutes of the regular board meeting held on August 14th, 2019.
I move approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting, August 14, 2019.
Second.
Moved by Director Fong, second by Director De La Cruz. Roll call vote, please.
I have a clarification. I believe on the first item there was a motion that was listed as a motion to accept by me, but it was actually a motion to amend a motion, so it wasn't properly listed in the minutes. So if we could have that amendment to the minutes.
Okay, so we are talking, backing up to C3. You're talking about the student readmission 2016-17-23, and you want to clarify that your motion was to accept the recommendation of the panel with the amendment of a school placement to Elsie Allen. Is that correct?
It was a motion to amend the motion, not a motion to accept. That's all I'm trying to clarify. It's currently listed as a motion to accept.
So there are two, so this is a hard thing to talk about right here, because this is something coming out of closed session, but there are two parts to that. There is a recommendation of the panel in general, whether or not the student will be readmitted, and then there is a placement. So if you are accepting the recommendation of the panel to readmit, then, but with an amendment to the placement school of Elsie Allen, but it's not amending the underlying.
Yeah, so I'm just clarifying that I made a motion to amend the placement. Originally it was a motion to place to Omarosa. I made a motion to amend the placement from Omarosa to Elsie Allen. Then we voted on that motion to amend, and the minutes reflect that it was a motion to accept.
Okay, so that means that we have not actually accepted the recommendation to, we have not readmitted the student. Is that what you're saying? I mean, that's what I'm saying actually now. So I'm going to bring us back to C3 and say that we have a case number 2016-2017-23 and it needs a motion.
Yeah, he's talking about the minutes. You're talking about the minutes, Director Medina.
The minutes, yeah, we're on the minutes.
He's talking
right?
about the minutes from the last meeting, C3, where Director Medina wanted to amend the motion made by Director De La Cruz, yes. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Correct. Yes. Do you have it down?
I can see it. It's just the Elsie Allen thing, because we just did that and it was the placement, that had me confused that you were going back to what just happened.
So Ms. Kolacek has the change in the minutes.
Okay.
So I guess the adequate thing would be a friendly amendment to the existing motion to accept the approval of the minutes with the amendment to those minutes as reflected with my request.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry that I totally misunderstood that based on what we just voted on. So now I don't even remember if we had a motion by.
So Director Medina just made a motion. I'll second his motion for acceptance of the minutes with the amendment to reflect what happened in the meeting.
Yes. So friendly amendment,
If it's friendly amendment, it doesn't require a vote as long
doesn't
as they both
require a
accept it.
second. It doesn't, yeah. This is not our finest moment. Let me just recognize procedurally, we do better than this lots of times. Okay, so this was moved by Director Fong and seconded by Director De La Cruz, friendly amendment by Omar Medina, and can we have a roll call vote on the motion that's on the table, which is to move acceptance with the friendly amendment offered by Director Medina?
Director Fong?
Aye.
Director De La Cruz?
Aye.
Director Montieri? Director McCormick?
Aye.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
Director Medina?
Aye.
President Close?
Aye. Okay, now, that motion carries, and I think what the good thing about this is that there's nowhere to go but up. And our student board member, who is going to be sworn in just now, was telling me naturally that she was a little nervous to get sworn in because she might make a mistake on this oath of office, and now she sees that we make all kinds of mistakes, and so it's totally okay. You are one of us. So I have the pleasure of swearing in our new student board member, Jasmine Moreno, and she is a senior at Ridgeway High School. She's been involved in many school activities, including president of Science Club, president of the Tea and Talk Club, and a member of Farms Leadership. She is also involved in many community activities, including Catholic Charities, Dia de los Muertos, and Latinx dance. Jasmine is always up for a good challenge and will be a strong voice for all students at SRCS. I'm sure that's true. Are you ready? All right. Okay. Repeat after me. Okay. I, Jasmine Moreno. Sorry, let me start over. See? I, Jasmine Moreno. Do solemnly swear. That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States.
That I will bear faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of California.
And the Constitution of the California.
That I take this obligation freely.
That I take this obligation freely.
Without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
Without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
And that I will faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations. All right. Okay, and this brings us to public comment. On non-agenda items, this is the opportunity for the public to address the board on items not on the agenda. If you have an issue related to personnel matter, we'd ask you not to address the board in public, but instead to first direct the matter to Assistant Superintendent Stacy Spector, raising her hand right there. And I have 5 blue cards now. If anybody else wants to speak, fill out a blue card and get it to Lori Kolachek sitting right there. I will call you in order. You have 3 minutes, and the board generally cannot comment on issues that are brought to us during this section because it is not agendized, but we are here to listen to you and do. Okay, number 1, and if you can kind of queue up, I'll give you a few at a time, then we can go quickly. Number 1 is James McMillan, and then Nancy Lands, and then William Steinmates. So James. James.
My wife would like to bring down to you guys.
Please.
Okay. Good evening. We are here to bring to your attention the condition of the Piner softball field and the non-compliance of Title IX. Joining us are parents, players, coaches, and others to show unity and support. Last year, our daughter played on the varsity team as a freshman, so this was our first time experiencing high school softball. During the season, as we traveled to other schools within our division, it quickly became apparent that Piner Field was in the worst shape out of all the others. In addition, we looked at Piner baseball field and realized that there was clear disparity between the boys and girls facilities. On July 17th, a letter was written by my wife, Denise, and I to Vice Principal McGurk and CC'd to multiple district representatives, Principal Desideri, Piner Booster Club, Piner athletic staff. We did receive a reply from Mr. McGurk and Ms. Desideri, but never any reply from a district representative. We attended PTSA and booster meetings to discuss this issue, and the same thing was mentioned. The district has acknowledged the non-compliance, and they are working on it. At that point, with no real clear answer or action, on August 14th, Denise once again directed the same letter to Mr. Mazzara and Ms. Kinemura. Out of the blue, on Monday evening, Mr. Mazzara finally reached out to Mr. McGurk, not us, to set up a meeting with Piner parents and coaches. Why did this take so long to happen, and why a day and a half before tonight's board meeting? Mr. Mazzara did take time to explain the Title IX situation and answer questions, but we left feeling like nothing is really going to happen anytime soon. Reports on Title IX compliance were submitted last fall and winter to the Piner administrators and the school board. To this date, we have not seen any action taken to improve the girls' softball field. Within the report, it states the safety concerns of the outfield being riddled with gopher holes and uneven playing surfaces. To us as parents, this is unacceptable. We are tired of hearing lip service, saying that things are going to happen. So far, you have failed our girls. Is the district waiting for a lawsuit to be filed after a player or other student is injured because of neglect? If we had received a response months ago and shown some action toward our goal, we would not be here tonight. All we are asking for is fairness. We are not asking for any more than what the law requires the district to do under Title IX compliance. Take a look at the Piner baseball field and tell us that the softball field is comparable. We want safe, well-manicured fields. We want new storage sheds and bleachers. We want something for our girls to look forward to and be proud of. Thank you for your time and attention to this matter. And girls, go Piner.
Thank you. Nancy Lands and then William Steinmates.
My name is Nancy Lands, and I'm a school parent, and I came to talk about 2 agenda items from the last meeting. I was not able to attend, but both of them are near and dear to my heart. The first is the Hidden Valley Satellite Site, which is now being whitewashed into the Parker Hill site instead. And there were some misstatements that were made regarding that site and the daycare situation there. by some of the board members and members of the public who might not be familiar with that situation. Previously, the Hidden Valley Satellite Daycare site was primarily for the Hidden Valley Satellite students. Then it was served the SHRAC students, as there isn't an on-site daycare there. And third, it was an overflow for the Hidden Valley main campus. Since that site was wiped out in the Tubbs fire, the Hidden Valley Satellite students who went and the overflow students who went to the satellite site are now all crammed into the daycare site at the main campus. Second, the reason you can't hire people for the daycare site staff is pay. It's supply and demand. There's tight labor market supply. You have to raise your wages in order to bring people in to run these programs. My guess is that these programs are highly profitable. Steve Mazzara himself has stated that they are self-sustaining in agenda items. I have listened and I have asked repeatedly for profit and loss statements on this program to see where the overflow funds go. And based on what parents pay for this program, I'm going to guess there's a profit, but for some reason your staff is not able to bring up a profit and loss statement on this program. And for Director De La Cruz, who I've emailed back and forth several times, and now she can put a face to that name, there isn't a certain type of student at Hidden Valley or anywhere that we're trying to seek. And thanks to the recent SIPSA reports, we see that Hidden Valley is now 44% economically disadvantaged. So thank you for making people fill out the daycare or the free lunch programs, because now you know how poor that school really is. It's not rich Fountain Grove anymore. And the second one is the Fundraising Foundation. President Close, I'm going to paraphrase you. It was a knife in my heart when the Parents Association got up and said they raised $40-some-odd thousand at a wine and cheese function, and the next school got up and said they raised $1,200 at a bake sale. And then you said, oh, and one school went on a field trip to a science museum in San Francisco, and the other went to a grocery store walking field trip. And the implication was that those field trips and that fundraising were because of a lack of access to funds. And that's inaccurate, and it's misleading. It might be because of the inability of some schools to fundraise versus other schools, but it's certainly not lack of funds. What it is it's misuse of the funds or misdirection or decision not to emphasize those use of those funds on field trips. Those schools, lots of these schools have plenty of Title I money and supplemental funds to spend on field trips and things like this. Some of these schools get $300,000 down to $70,000. For example, Lehman, $311,000, Hidden Valley, $77,000, Proctor Terrace, $62,000. Two of your schools spent almost $30,000 on field trips from your SIPSA reports. They make those choices. Those schools have the discretion on how to use those funds. It's their choice. They can take those field trips if they want to, and the parents don't have to pay for it. So just be honest and upfront when you do your fundraising, please. Thank you.
William Steinmetz, and then Pam Karbowski, and then Micah Carlin Goldberg.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the school board for giving me the time to speak today. I'm a senior student at Santa Rosa High School, and I've come to speak about the issue regarding the student bathrooms at the high school. Currently, students will go days without hand soap made available in the restrooms. In previous years, the 2018 through 2019 school year, the bathrooms would be without soap for weeks. We are into the second full week of the school year, and already the students face the same issue. I understand that this is not the fault of the janitorial staff, but instead students who decide to remove the hand soap dispenser from the wall, and I understand that it's hard to deal with students who may feel the need to remove the dispenser from the wall. However, with flu season approaching, it is important that students are able to maintain proper hygiene at school, so I believe that hand sanitizer stations should be set up around campus. This will deter students from vandalizing the dispensers because they have pressure from other students watching them. Additionally, I'd like to address how punishment is made. Currently, when students are caught smoking in the bathrooms are locked for a day or even a couple days. This does nothing to stop the issue of students smoking in the bathroom, but instead punishes those students who are using the bathroom for its intended purposes. And then finally, the filter status on many of the water faucets around school has been neglected, staying on the red status for several weeks, and that is not safe for students as unchanged filters foster mold growth. And that's about all I have.
Thank you. Pam Karbowski, then Micah Carlin.
My name is Pam Karbowski, and I am a PE specialist at Brook Hill and Biella Elementary. Prior to teaching in Santa Rosa City Schools, I worked as a classroom teacher for 10 years at St. Rose Elementary. While teaching there, I had 40 students in my 6th grade class. These students had supportive, educated, and involved parents, and the majority of them were at grade level. So I know what it's like to teach in a large-sized class. Was it easy? No. But did I work to the best of my ability? Of course I did. But now let's fast forward to today. While working at Brook Hill for the last 6 years, getting to know our school's population, I am very, very concerned. We don't have a restorative justice coordinator. Our class sizes are jam-packed. We don't have an SDC K through 1st grade teacher, so who's running the class? Our principal, because we can't land a teacher or a sub. Now, how can we expect her to teach a class and run a school? We also have an autistic classroom for what was originally 4th through 6th grade. Mind you, that's what our teacher's credential is for, but yet she now has 3 3rd graders with no aide, and she can't find a sub to fill that aide position. Our RSP teacher, who states, I have never in my 19 years in this district started out way over my caseload at 31. According to state and her contract, she's supposed to have no more than 28. She has asked for help from the beginning of the school year, but has not received any. Our 3rd grade class sizes are 26 and 27. These students last year struggled as 2nd graders. This is when we had to push these students into 2 classrooms when they originally were 3, due to having been told by the district office we needed to move one of our classroom teachers to another site because that school was lacking teachers and our numbers were too low at 16, 17, and 16 students, which really is what our population needs, small class sizes. A large percentage of our students are below grade level. Is this because our teachers aren't doing all they can? Absolutely not. It's because class sizes are large, they're filled to the limit or beyond, and don't have the support they need for a variety of reasons. Where is the equity that we continue to say that we are fighting for our students? How will they ever break the cycle of being below grade level if we continue to push them into large class sizes where they can't get the help they deserve? We need smaller class sizes at Brook Hill for these students to succeed. They need our help, for they already face challenging daily obstacles that I can't even comprehend. We need to advocate for them. We, as the adults, need to give them the equity they deserve. We need to make a difference for them. More teachers and smaller class sizes. Let's do the right thing now and make a change so these students can have a brighter future. Thank you.
Micah Carlin Goldberg.
So I'm also here to talk about equity. Last year, we went to an all-digital registration system. This year, we've added on an all-digital system to sign up for free and reduced lunch. Paper copies were eventually made available, but not nearly enough at our site. Our family engagement facilitator is spending all of her days sitting down with families so that they can sign up for email addresses, so that they can sign up for free and reduced lunch. Equity, justice. Our website for a long time had a picture on it with the 3 children standing behind the wooden fence trying to watch the baseball game. And we had, everybody's seen it by now. We've got equality, equity. Well, we need justice. We need the fence removed. We're putting barriers between our parents and access to our school district. I'm a very techie person, and I totally get the want to have an integrated system where next year the parents can go on and all the stuff's there and they make changes and they hit submit. But we're putting a barrier in front of our parents to get in there in the first place. We're not providing the supports they need. Our family engagement person is not enough for all of the families that our student that need that help to be able to fill out the form so that their students can eat lunch. We're putting barriers up. We also have the barrier of the AC. I appreciate Dr. Kitamura's response to my email today, but Last year, we could turn our AC down to 68, which was reasonable, barely. Over the summer, it was changed to 70. So really, I've got 72 to 74 degrees in my classroom every day because they've locked us out of the AC. They don't trust us to keep our class comfortable and not waste energy. And I get that we've got a consultant who is running that system, but you guys are the boss. My students complain daily about how hot it is in my classroom. It distracts them from their learning. It is an equity issue. We've got rooms that don't even have AC at some sites. We've got broken ACs all over the place. I'm hearing from teachers at all kinds of sites that their rooms are in the 80s, which is a Williams Act violation. Right? We gotta be taking the barriers away. We've gotta be supporting our families. Put the paper back in the school. Let us do registrations by paper. Put the parents in slowly. Give them the chance. Provide nights and days where they can come in and get help one-on-one with more than just a family engagement facilitator. We need more staff helping our families get this done. We are not doing a good enough job of removing the institutional barriers to access for our students and our families. We need to get it done. Thank you.
Okay, I don't have any more blue cards, so we will move on to reports. Oh, Superintendent.
I want to thank all the public comment folks for coming out. I think this is a part of what we do as a board meeting, a public board meeting, is to hear your input. I appreciate Assistant Superintendent Mazzara going out and speaking to the Pioneer families. And we talked to Assistant Deputy Superintendent Rick Edson right there in the blue with the tie on. He is the person that runs maintenance and operations, a part of who the people would be to come out and take a look. So he's got staff ready to go out, take a look, and see what is going to be needed to rectify the field. The bigger picture of this is that we need to do this at all of the sites, because it just isn't Pioneer's softball field that I think is in dire straits. And so we're gonna look at all of them, but we're gonna start with Pioneer. And we are not wanting you, it looks like you might be the softball team right there? Yeah. We want to be sure that you are playing on a safe field, so be patient with us. Their team's going to go out, do the assessment this week, and then we're going to see what we need to get some repairs done. I think the other part is we need some help from the community to say that it's okay that we don't overuse our facilities. Right? I think what happens is that we have everybody using facilities, and when the minute we lock a gate so that it's not available, we hear about it. So we need support from the community to say, in order for our kids to be able to play on these fields, we have to maintain them in a way that they don't get overused. And so that's gonna be something we'll have to work together with the community about. So I appreciate you coming all out, the Pioneer softball team, and giving voice to your concerns. Title IX is an issue throughout this district. We also have to take a real hard look at boosters. How are booster funds distributed, and are they distributed equally when it comes to sports? So that's going to be another community issue that we're going to have to work together on, because what I see is that it isn't distributed equally, that when boosters raise funds, certain sports are taken care of in terms of equipment and fields, and others are not. And people can disagree with me, but this is what I see. So that's another piece we're gonna have to work on. Very complex issue that's gonna take all of us together to resolve, but but I do want you to know that we recognize that there are issues and that we've got some work to do. So I just wanted to say that and thank the softball players for coming out. Also, William, I love it when students come out and speak about what actually is happening at the school for you, the reality of that. And so I'd like you to meet with our people in facilities and let us know what you're seeing and what you're hearing. I love the idea about the hand sanitizers. I think that's a great idea. So thank you for that. And then the other people who spoke, I'm going to listen and take that into consideration and to heart and try to do what we can do to resolve some of the issues that we heard tonight. So thank you.
Okay, CSEA report. Is President Alfonso here?
Yes, President Alfonso sends her regrets that she's not able to be here tonight.
SRTA report. I see President Lyon up there.
Good evening, Dr. Kitamura, President Close, and members of the board. I am William Lyon. I'm the president of Santa Rosa Teachers Association, representing over 900 educators in our district. I want to tell you about, I put an article on your desk this afternoon and a little letter in there to explain why I put it in there. I respectfully request that you read it and you'll at least know our side of that particular story. And if you would like to know more about it, I am eager to have coffee or a phone call or a walk around the park with any of you if you want to hear more about it. But do please read that so that you'll know where we're coming from. That's old business. New business, I'm hearing lots of excitement, lots of good stuff from all over the place about, we have new teachers, we have new principals, we have lots of new students, and the energy of the first few weeks of school is palpable and exciting and engaging, so I'm glad about that. I want to tell a quick story so you know the world of a union president. I spent some time in Harmony Unified Teachers Association, and they're having some labor strife, so we were down there to lend our voice to that struggle. And what happened, you may have read about this in the newspaper, is that school board meeting was taken over by an issue where the president, the principal superintendent, who was brand new, first day of school, he was out there greeting kids and he had a big rainbow flag. And what surprised me is there were a couple of parents who really took him to task about that and gave him a hard time. And my heart went out to him because what a rough thing on the first day of school to have somebody challenge you when you're doing something that is so important for our students and our staff, to let you know that you're safe no matter what. And I tell the story for two reasons. One, the teachers that were there, 100% were there to support the kids. There wasn't one teacher that didn't stand up. The principal got a standing ovation when he explained what he did and why he did and what it meant to him. And without going too much into it, the students that flag is designed to protect are more likely to commit suicide, they're more likely to have all kinds of troubles, and to have the principal of a school out there saying, hey, you're welcome here. That was really powerful, and to see the teachers do it, that was really powerful. That was the first thought. The second thought was, in our district, we're already there. We're not perfect at it. We have to fight all of our old trainings and all of our subconscious bias like it's work, right? And it's going to be work for the rest of our careers. But the shared value that every single one of our kids matters and that they belong here and that they're safe, that's a given. And I felt so lucky that that's a fight we don't have to have because we've already agreed to it. And I mentioned this earlier this year, but during Pride Month, our district office was flying the flag. And the recovering homophobe in me just recognizes, talk about growth mindset. Like, we have created a space that didn't exist when I was a student. And it didn't exist in my heart when I was a high school student. And I'm just really grateful that we've gone there. So whatever things that we're doing right and whatever things that we're doing wrong, I'm just really proud to work in a district that has already decided that we're going to do everything we can to make our students and our staff safe. And I thank you for that.
Thank you. Do we have a Labor Management Collaborative report?
President Close, no report this evening.
Okay. Superintendent report.
Wait, Piner, don't leave. If you know any seniors who are looking for a job in child care assistance, have them look at the website edjoin.org for an after-school or before-school job, okay? So that's a part of my report. We are in need of child care assistance. They are, the job applications are on edjoin.org. And so if you have a time after school, we would definitely like you to apply because we have a need for child care assistance. And Assistant Superintendent Missouri is waving a flag at me or waving something at me.
Sorry to interrupt, but see the College and Career Center, they are also helping us with the applications and walk the students through that process.
Okay, College and Career Centers at the high schools, thank you. So that was part of my report. The second part of my report is that I want to give appreciation to Listening for a Change. They so kindly awarded me with a Connie Cotting Award for Humanist Award, the 15th annual. And so I'm very appreciative and thankful for that recognition because to be a humanist, I think, is pretty special. Pretty special. And that's all I have today.
Thank you. I have no report tonight. We'll start with board member reports on that end tonight. Director De La Cruz. Actually, I'm sorry. Jasmine Moreno, Director Moreno. Do you have a report for us tonight? No is an okay answer, or you could tell us about your first day of school. Getting a board member report primer right now. She's ready.
Hello? Hello? You can hear me? Okay.
You're on.
Okay. I mean, I do have a report. Like, I normally don't eat school lunches because when I do, I get food poisoning. So I really want to change that in my school. Like, we get, like, lunch that I remember I had in elementary. And when I used to go to San Jose High School, we would get like pizza and burgers, you know, something kind of good, not the best food out there, but, you know, it didn't look like if I was in elementary anymore. And like, I just wish we could like look into that, into getting like better lunches for like all the schools, not generally just Ridgeway, but like every school.
So you're going to be an important part of that process because we need student voice like yours, and so get ready.
Okay.
We need your help.
Okay.
Yeah. And are your teachers here?
Yeah, they just
but I see one. I see one
yeah,
teacher.
Mr. Ramirez, he's my advisor.
What's his name?
Mr. Ramirez.
Okay, so, yay! Oh, do we have another teacher here? Oh.
That's my mom.
Introduce.
Yeah, Mommy, say hi.
Mommy.
Oh, her name is Patricia.
Thank you. Director De La Cruz.
I have no report besides being sleep deprived with the 7th grader taking 0 period. And the adjustment to middle school is real. What else? Thank you to all the amazing parents and teachers and kids and administrators and all of the people in our system who make this feel effortless and are full of so much love for our kids. This, you know, transition, whether it's middle school or just the first day of school or the first couple of weeks of school, is really hard, and I'm just really struck by how awesome you guys are, and you know, how our kids are just surrounded by all of this amazing sense of love and support. And even in these kind of tough moments where everybody's readjusting and we're learning about each other as communities and how our communities are deeper and broader and more diverse than we initially knew of each other, there has been just such an openness to have real conversations about how we're educating and taking seriously those responsibilities to educate all of our kids in Santa Rosa City schools. So I just I'm full with a whole lot of gratitude in my heart for all of the hard work that you guys do, and de corazón, gracias. That's my report.
Thank you. Director Manieri.
So I want to use my board member report time to just share out some information. I work for a nonprofit, and I work with the community all the time. Like, I'm constantly engaging with parents and youth and our community members. And there are several issues that have come up that are of concern in our community in regard to students and youth. And so to Director De La Cruz's point about, being thankful and appreciative of all the adults and the people that make our district's so great. I think that sometimes when you're in that role, you also need some support and some information and some resources. So I just wanted to take my time to share out some really great events that are happening in our community pretty soon. One is through a partnership with the Santa Rosa Violence Prevention Partnership and 4Cs. It's called A Parent's Guide to Social Media Safety, and this is happening on September 17th. And it looks like there's a dinner that is happening before the workshop. So it starts at 5:30 and ends at 7:30. And this is happening at the 4Cs office on Stony Circle. And so this flyer that I have is bilingual, so I'm assuming that there will be that this will be a bilingual event. And this is something that I've heard a lot of parents talk about, is social media safety. So here's a really great resource to learn more about that. Parent Cafe, which is something that I think is a really great event to go to. That's happening, or they're kind of revamping the program because it's existed for a while now, but there's a series of them happening. They're on a monthly basis, and I won't give all that information because it's quite a lot, but I have that flyer, and if anyone is interested, I can post it on Facebook if you want to follow me on Facebook or something, or I can just share it if you want to. I don't know if we're going to have a break at some point, but I'll just have it up here if you want to take a picture of it. And then the last one is I have a calendar of support groups and different classes that the Child Parent Institute is having for our community, and they do also have classes in Spanish. And this is a calendar for the fall, so September through, I guess the winter, September through December. So I just wanted to share that and use my board member report time to share that information. Thank you.
Director Manieri, do you have a school board Facebook?
I do, but I don't use it as much as my personal one, so yeah.
I'm a terrible social media person, but although I do have a lot of people follow it, but maybe if you put it on yours, take a picture and put those things on yours, and I could share it on mine, and maybe superintendent can put them out, but.
Yeah. Great.
All right, thank you. Director Pong? No report. Director McCormick?
I had the pleasure of attending the LCLN Ag Booster fundraiser a week or two ago, and I was so impressed with that event in general. The LCLN Ag students were super professional and friendly and organized and welcoming and very proud of what they do, and just presented themselves, their school, and their programs just in an excellent way. They were true ambassadors of the school and the program. And I also just thought, I mean, they raised, I don't know what the total is, do you know? Of the fundraiser, how much they made? Well, I know it's thousands of dollars because just in the live auction alone, things were going for thousands of dollars. So that was fantastic to see that. And I just thought it was a great model of community engagement and a crossover, because the ag community here in Santa Rosa and Sonoma County is really tight. And so I saw a lot of people that are heavily involved with the ag program at Santa Rosa JC helping run that event. I saw some people that are heavily involved with Santa Rosa High School ag department there supporting Elsie's ag department, and then just people in the agricultural community here locally in Sonoma County. And so I just think anytime that we can, get some real world and real connection experience to our community with our schools and our programs. I just thought that was an excellent example of that. So thank you for a great event, and congratulations on the successful fundraiser. And then the last thing I want to say, and I feel like this might come up a little bit later tonight, but I just want to remind everybody that we are really excited and wanting to hear your input on our draft of the strategic plan, and we have meetings planned next week on Tuesday night and Wednesday night. Tuesdays at Elsie, or is that Montgomery? Yeah, Tuesday nights at Elsie, Wednesday nights at Montgomery, and I'm going to be at both of those. I know all of us are going to be represented at each of those meetings, and so we're really excited to hear what you have to say. So I'm just encouraging you. I know it's early in the year, it's hot outside, people are really tired at the end of the workday, but we really want to hear what you have to say about the strategic plan. So please, I encourage you to come to at least one of those meetings, and if nothing else, listen, but more importantly, we want to hear from you. Thank you.
Director Sheffield.
Yes, on August 17th, I attended the Back to School Bike Blast. This was at MLK Park, sponsored by the City of Santa Rosa and other communities sponsors. This was a bike safety and road skill training. There were free helmets. A lot of students came out for this. A lot of young kids came out for this. Just something that was really positive in the community going on just as school was starting up. And at the event, I ended up having a discussion with representatives from the Bicycle Coalition and the City of Santa Rosa's Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Board, who would love to present to the board on safe routes to school. And I'll have continued conversation, Diane, with you on getting them in front of us and maybe having a conversation, something that the district has worked with before on safe routes, but something that it's time for us to look at again. And then I want to give a shout out to a dear friend and City Schools alum, Maria de Los Angeles, did a wonderful, wonderful gallery exhibit at the Sonoma County Museum. She was here last weekend. I can't even describe her art in words. It is just so powerful, the message, the beauty in it. It will be at the museum, I believe, until November. First week in November. I encourage everybody to get out there. I had an opportunity to talk to her about art in schools, and she's obviously a big supporter, and she came from Cook, Elsie, and she graduated from Santa Rosa High. Has just been a huge advocate for art, the arts in schools, and including LBC last week had the mariachi band, and she was a big supporter in that as well. So again, go, students that are out there, you need to see this. This is really amazing. And it, like I said, I can't put into words the power that is in her art. You can find her online as well. The Press Democrat covered, they did a couple different stories on her. So anyway, I just wanted to give a big shout out. Maria, we love you.
Thank you. Director Medina.
I really just wanted to take a moment to thank all the parents that have taken the time to talk to me about their first week's experience, their concerns, and also sharing the positive moments that they've had as they've gone back to school. Nada más quería darle gracias a todos los padres y familia que han tomado un poco de tiempo para informarme cómo les fue la primera semana que regresaron a la escuela, informándome de las cosas que no fueron bien y también de lo que ha pasado bien. Aside from that, nothing else to report.
Thank you. Okay, we have no CSBA or NSBA report, which brings us to the consent agenda, and I need a motion for E2 through E11.
Move to approve items E2 through E11.
I'll second.
Moved by Director Medina, second by Director Sheffield. Roll call vote, please.
Director Medina? Director Sheffield?
Aye.
Director De La Cruz? Director Montieri?
Aye.
Director Fong?
Aye.
Director McCormick?
Aye.
President Close?
Aye.
And Director Moreno?
All right, first vote.
Yeah.
Well done. Okay, thank you. That motion carries and brings us to our discussion and action items F agenda. We start with F1, action item approval of resolution recognizing September as Attendance Awareness Month.
President Close, board members, Dr. Kitamura, we're bringing this resolution as we do for the last couple of years on the importance of September as an Attendance Aware Month, and we're going to use that opportunity to reintroduce you to Patty Turner and her team from Project SAIL and outline a little bit of the work we've done with Project SAIL in the last year. So with that, I turn it off to Director Turner.
Good evening, Board of Directors and Dr. Kitamura. First of all, I would love to introduce our newest member of our SAIL team. This is our family mentor, Alexandra Wilkerson. She joined us just a couple of weeks ago, and already she's doing amazing work for us and for our sites. Last September, we presented to you a yearly attendance data and shared the work from Project SAIL. Presently, we still await the new California dashboard results for the 2018-19 school year. However, I went ahead and shared some of our data from our work. The first table shows 3 years of data from 2016 to 2019. You can see the meetings that we had with the student attendance review team that were located at all of the sites, the student attendance review board meetings at our SAFE office, and then how many referrals we've done and presented to the DA and the court. As you can see, we did extremely well in messaging how important it is to attend school for our students, families, and community. In general, attendance starts out strong, and by the end of the year, it sadly does decline, almost about 3%. What we have learned is that our families need to learn more, to learn about the importance of attendance, to have an expectation and a sense of accountability, and not just for our families, but also for our sites. To connect attendance with graduation, and especially the knowledge about how total credits are needed to graduate. Second piece is the district needs to learn about our student families and their stories. This was a new piece for us. Growing number of students with anxiety or stress that stop them from coming to school is apparent. The lack of parenting skills, especially when motivating their child to go to school. What can we do for a long-term solution? First, keep the infrastructure at school operable. 2, to continue to monitor that Tier 3 level of students. And finally, to continue to create relationships with our families to provide the service that they most need. This work aligns with your draft priority number 2, a balanced education, where we want to ensure each student is safe, engaged, supported, and challenged. In moving forward, we know the board will continue to strongly support positive attendance. Thank you.
Back to the board for any questions and approval of our resolution.
Questions? Director Sheffield, then Director Medina.
I just had a quick question. Thank you for the presentation, and I definitely applaud the success that we've had over the last year on definitely increasing school attendance. On the DA referrals, what typically happens with these? When we get this far?
Yeah, go.
What happens is that the court sees a student or family for a year. They schedule every 4 to 6 weeks a visit to the judge, and they present their attendance. Steve Nielsen is the liaison for the court, and we send them a report, and then they ask the family how it's doing, either celebrate their success, and then determine whether after a period of time they can dismiss the case because the student is doing well, or what happens is there may be some consequences. But after the end of a year, the case may be dismissed. Sometimes that's all it takes and the student turns around and is doing really well. Sadly, there are times where the student comes back to the school location and it repeats, and once again is a truant. And in those cases, they get 2 letters, and then they're called reruns. We then repeat the process and send them back to the court.
Thank you.
Director Medina, then Director Fong.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah, Superintendent.
This, as a part of bringing resolutions forward, it was not meant to be a full-blown report. It was really just a kind of a snapshot of what we're doing for attendance, because it's really about promoting September as Attendance Awareness Month. So I just want the board members to be aware that they prepared just a little overview of attendance and some of the things that we're doing.
And can you remind us when, because we do have an attendance report, a full-blown report on a regular.
On the September 25th board meeting.
Yes, September 25th board meeting.
So September 25th, if you have some very specific questions and need a little bit more robust information, those questions might be best saved for September 25th. But Director Medina and then Director Fong.
Yeah, so my question revolves around the, first off, the Keeping Kids in School initiative with the county's probation department. Is that still going, and are we still part of it? Because I remember they used to really push for this.
It is still going for the county, and because we have the attendance grant, the Student Attendance Improves Learning Grant, they have pulled away to support the other schools and the other districts. Once in a while, we do share students, either through probation or the court, that they ask them to work more closely with the families, but otherwise, at this point in time, we're kind of on our own. And
I did see in the reporting that data around 9th through 12th graders wasn't included. I see it was a result of California Department of Education changes, but do you know what type of improvements we've seen at that level in terms of decreases in chronic absenteeism?
We'll know more when the CDE releases their information, and we'll have that presentation on September 25th.
Thank you.
Director Fong, then Director De La Cruz. Oh, Director De La Cruz.
One little question. I noticed here that it said that one of the reasons that the percentage is high is because of a reporting anomaly. So are we saying that the data that we're relying on to understand kind of the reductions in absenteeism isn't solid either? Or how are we able to use the data to kind of plan and review and evaluate what we're doing?
Some of that data was presented from 2 years ago. The data we're going to be able to present to you on September 25th is about our program in the last 2 years, where that information will be solid, and we're going to measure that. So that glitch was a reporting error that happened in CalPADS that showed us having too many students and tardies and absences, which was a false report to the county.
Other questions, comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Director Medina?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask. I remember that when I was on the Keeping Kids in School committee, that one of the things that we were really kind of pushing for is for schools or like student organizations to do things around this month to really promote the month. Is there anything that we're doing to like have like either student organizations or the student body associations on campuses to really do activities or rallies or stuff related to student attendance awareness?
If there is anything it is done at the school site, we present information to them about how they can have announcements and have back to school or attendance, I don't want to say parties, but attendance rallies and things like that. Do you know of any specific schools?
No, they usually take care of that on their own, but I do want to kind of pitch the I Attend which we are part of that committee, and it's designing a little bit more of tools for the sites in the district with various different abilities and activities for each of the schools to be able to incorporate. And it'll be not just for 1 month, but for the whole year. So you'll see more on that as well.
The other place that I see where attendance is really emphasized is through Best Plus. And then I've also been able to drop into school sites and see principals monthly giving out awards around attendance as well. So the school sites have really done a great job of taking it on as very important, which is why we can see the drop, especially at the elementary school right now, and I think we'll see a drop at the high school as well. So between Best Plus and then the individual initiative of each of the principals, and I think Keeping Kids on School was really a help to jumpstart some of that work.
You ready for a motion?
Yep.
I would like to move approval of the resolution recognizing September as Attendance Awareness Month. I think teachers to 1 will say if they come, we can teach them.
I'll second.
Moved by Director Fong, second by Director Sheffield. Roll call vote, please.
Director Fong? Aye. Director Sheffield?
Aye.
Director De La Cruz? Director Montieri?
Aye.
Director McCormick?
Aye.
Director Medina? Aye. President Close?
Aye.
Director Moreno?
Okay, motion carries. And that brings us to F2, discussion item, Santa Rosa City Schools Strategic Plan input.
So staff was whispering to me, and I couldn't read their lips from afar on the last item about attendance, to say about your video, meaning my video, because my videos have alone affected attendance so greatly around every day counts that's really the reason why. No, so anyway.
Okay. Sorry, I forgot to add that,
yeah,
Dr.
That's okay. And we're in production for the next one, so if you see me in the same shirt for the next 3 days, that's because we're in production, so. Santa Rosa, as promised, I have put the strategic plan on the agenda every single time because I want to give the public an opportunity to speak to the draft version of the strategic plan. But also now we have the links for the survey are available. So if you look in the body, you can see the strategic plan survey is a blue link, and so it is available for people to take. Ms. Kolachek, is the Spanish version available?
Yes, it is. It's on the website.
It's on the website, okay. And so we will be sure to get the Spanish version out as well. And so we're now just waiting for that input from the surveys. We are also, as Director McCormick talked about, the Spanish bilingual meetings, both English and Spanish at Elsie Allen on September 3rd, on September 4th at Montgomery. It is from 5:30 to 7 p.m. There's childcare available. Some light refreshments will be available. We really encourage you to come out. We're actually going to run 2 meetings simultaneously, one in English and one in Spanish. Dr. Ayala will be facilitating the Spanish one. I'll be facilitating the English one. The survey closes September 30th, and so please encourage your friends and families to take the survey. The strategic plan will then be presented on October 23rd. The board will have a study session in between, I think it's the 16th, is that right, October 16th, to review all of the input and make any of the changes that they feel should be changed, and present it back out to the public. So we don't have any cards, right? So
we have no blue cards on this, and so anything, if basically this is an update for the public and a reminder for the public, but if the board has any comments or that they'd like to make at this time about this.
We also, I forgot to say, have a consultation with CSEA and SRTA on September 16th, and so we're looking forward to that as well.
Correct. And the board just, we worked really hard on these draft priorities, and we're real proud of our starting point, but we don't, treat them as precious, and we are really looking for your feedback and are open to your ideas and your feedback. So please don't think that this is set in stone and that we're going through the motions here. We are really asking for your input, and we hope to see lots of you there and lots of people taking this survey online.
and Director Jasmine, we will be coming to Ridgeway to get feedback from Ridgeway students. Tomorrow.
Just to add, Diane, really do appreciate you putting this on the agenda and continuing to put it on the agenda. Just open it up for discussion, let the community know that this is something that we really have put a lot of time in and that we really take seriously. So the process, this is just part of the process, I know, but it's an important step that we take, and thank you for keeping this on the agenda.
Okay, thanks. So we'll move on to F3, discussion item, PG&E Community Wildfire Safety Program presentation.
So as many of you have probably seen in the newspaper, there is much talk about potential shut-offs, shutdowns by PG&E, about de-energization from the county and the city. And so being that we have 16,000 students and 1,600 employees which to keep safe and to be able to provide a plan for, we've asked Herman G. Hernandez to come on behalf of PG&E to speak about the actual PG&E plans, the PSPS, and give the board an opportunity to weigh in, because we need to begin planning what we want to do. So I will turn it over. Do we have the handouts out to everybody, Lori?
I have them, and I will pass them out.
I'm sorry, what? Did we give the other handouts? Deputies?
I have them.
Yeah, can you hand those out, please?
Yeah, we unfortunately do not have any computer or video tonight, so
okay.
I'm going to ask Herman to talk through the slides that the board will have in front of them. We'll make the copies available to the public if they want them after this meeting.
Another option that I can actually offer is I think I have enough handouts for every person in this room to follow with just the public safety power shutoff part of this presentation, but I can also go quickly through the presentation since I see the back part is the actual presentation. Is that cool? Can I do have them with me.
Yeah, if we can hand out what you have, I think that would be helpful.
Would they like me to wait for the presentations to? Would you like me to wait or green light? All right. All right, Trustee Moreno, Dr. Kitamura, President Close, board members, staff members, and community members. First off, I'd like to say, Señora Morena, muchísimas felicidades. Has de estar bien orgullosa de tu hija hoy. So my name is Herman Hernandez, and I'm your local public affairs representative for Sonoma and Lake County with PG&E for just 48 more hours. And this is actually the 40th presentation that we've made over the last 3 months in Lake and Sonoma County, and it's a very important presentation because we have to take this seriously, especially as educators. We run facilities and schools, and we have a lot of families and kids that are going to be accessing your schools, and if the power does go out, it's incredibly important that your school district, and I know that they have been working on potential plans, that they have a plan. And the main reason why I enjoy doing this work is, number one, is that we have to engage, we have to educate, and we have to inform our communities so they can be as best prepared as possible, because regardless if you agree with the strategy or not, you have to be informed, and number two is you have to have a plan. because this is a reality, and this is something that we've implemented last year. As a matter of fact, when I started working for PG&E last year in Lake County, were the first 2 public safety power shutoffs in October and November that PG&E had ever done in their history. So real quickly, I'm just gonna run through the presentation that everybody has up there, because a lot of people always ask when I just talk about public safety power shutoff is, why is PG&E only shutting the power off? What else are they doing to prevent wildfires from happening, and what else are they doing to invest in their infrastructure to make our community safer and more resilient, to protect ourselves from climate change and these catastrophic wildfires that have been happening in Northern California over the last decade. So one of the very first things that PG&E did after October 2017 wildfires was they took their engineers, their meteorologists, and a lot of their leadership, not just down to San Diego Gas and Electric, but they also visited New Zealand and Australia, which are other areas in our world that are experiencing similar climate change, but also these catastrophic wildfires that are just devastating wildlands and different in their communities. So they came back, and one of the things that they invested in was called a Wildfire Safety Operations Center, which is something that we'll talk a lot about because it plays a huge role in decision-making to prepare and to alert for a public safety power shutoff. The other thing you may have seen in the newspaper in the last month is that PG&E has invested in weather stations throughout their territory, and as a matter of fact, I got an update this month saying that PG&E now has invested or installed 18 new weather stations throughout our county, and what that does is it gives us much more accurate weather forecasts for your local weather that is now being processed through our meteorologists and our engineers down in San Francisco in the Wildfire Safety Operations Center. This doesn't really impact the majority of the city of Santa Rosa. It touches parts of Fountain Grove and northeastern Santa Rosa, but PG&E has invested heavily and increased, on top of their routine vegetation management, they've done a lot of enhanced vegetation management work, and a lot of this work is focused on Tier 2 and Tier 3 high fire threat zones. Tier 3 zones are the highest fire risk, and Tier 2 are elevated fire risk. The other thing that they've been doing is, you may have seen helicopters, but in our crews in blue going around doing wildfire safety inspections. They almost finished that work. It's 99% complete. They went around and addressed a lot of the infrastructure that needed to be replaced or updated. And that's an ongoing project, and a lot of that is actually public information that's shared on our website. The other thing is they've been replacing thousands of poles throughout their territory, making them more resilient, putting in harder wood or different non-wood material. They've been reconductoring their electrical lines. They've been looking at targeted undergrounding projects. One of the the best example I could give you is actually a very local one out in between Monterey and Camp Meeker. They undergrounded 3,000 feet of distribution line. It cost about $1.5 million and took them about 9 months. So undergrounding is definitely a solution to this issue, but it's going to be a more long-term solution. So moving on, let's just go straight to why we're here today. If you go to page number 10, and for a lot of the community members, they all have this flyer, and the bottom part is what's in the presentation, which is what is PG&E looking at when they're looking at potentially de-energizing their lines. So it's not just a red flag warning. A red flag warning is something that definitely alerts all of us. I mean, we get those updates far in advance before an actual red flag warning is occurring, but that is something that we go back to that Wildfire Safety Operations Center, where we have staff 24/7. They start to monitor the humidity levels, the winds that are 25 miles per hour or more, wind gusts of 45 miles per hour or more. They look at the condition of the local dry fuel, and then they're also looking at the, there's about over 1,000 people that actually live and work here in Sonoma County and hundreds in Lake County, and we have supervisors and managers who are also providing feedback to our Wildfire Safety Operations Center. So very important to note, it's not just a red flag warning that's going to trigger a public safety power shutoff. The other thing that is an amazing update that we got last Friday is if you go to pgne.com/weather, we now are providing all of our up-to-date 7-day forecasts for a potential PSPS. And for the next 7 days, it's gray, meaning that it's not on alert. And that's coming straight from our Wildfire Safety Operations Center. The next page is a picture of every person in this room actually has access to this map. It's the California Public Utilities Commission High Fire Threat Map. And what this gives you the ability to do is actually look up your address to see if you live in a tier 2 or a tier 3 zone. Why this map is important is because for a public safety power shutoff, the majority of this school district is not in a tier 2 or tier 3 zone. You're in a tier 1 zone. But it does not matter, because if there is a public safety power shutoff that's focused on certain lines that need to be de-energized that are running through tier 2 and tier 3 zones in East Sonoma County or West Sonoma County that feed the school district, you may be impacted. So this is a good map to look up your address just to see if you live in a fire threat zone, but it's important to know that you have to have a plan, because this is not going to discriminate whether you live in a 1, 2, or 3 zone. Now, a lot of people that when we first started rolling out this program, they were like, well, are you going to give us notifications? And this summer, there are a million different ways that the power can go out. And this summer, I continuously get text messages, emails, and calls saying, is this a PSPS, when their power just randomly goes out? So for a public safety power shutoff, a PSPS, you will have 48 hours notice that your power is going to be impacted. Now, it gets tricky for this school district because you have so many different facilities that are fed by so many different distribution lines in your community and substations. So it is very important for the school district to actually have a plan in terms of your notification systems set up with PG&E, as well as your families in the room and staff. You got to make sure that if you are a PG&E customer, to update your account information and opt into, or not opt into, I shouldn't have said that, but it's update your information and tell us how you want to be notified in the case of a public safety power shutoff. It can be text messages, it can be phone, landline, cell phone, email address. But you have to make those updates now. And we do have reps who work with your school district that are able to put your main points of contact, and you want to have more than one for your facilities, because God forbid someone's on vacation and you don't get notified. So as we start to notify people, we're also going to be sharing a phone number that you can call to get more information in several languages. You'll also get a link where you'll be able to get accessed information. And then at 24 hours, you will also be notified that the power is going to be shut off. Just before, you'll be notified that the power is going to be shut off. And one thing that I would like to point out is that this is where it gets very confusing and tricky. PG&E is only notifying the customers that are going to be impacted. So if a quarter of Santa Rosa is impacted, that 1/4 is going to be notified by PG&E. The other 3/4 will not be notified by PG&E, but they're going to see on social media, they're going to get a NICS alert, they're going to learn from other news sources that there's going to be a PSPS in Santa Rosa. And that creates a little bit of chaos, but PG&E did improve something, meaning, or where they are allowing people to, there's going to be a live map on our website, and this will be shared through social media and through other sources, so you can actually look up your address during a PSPS event and see if your home or if your school is going to be impacted by a PSPS. Now, during the actual outages, we will continue to send notifications, and then once the power is restored, you receive a notification. One of the main reasons why we're going to move to the next page, which is how does PG&E restore power? One of the reasons why it takes so long for PG&E to actually Restore power is we have to wait for the specific weather event to pass through the territory that it's impacting. And that can be hours, like the event in Lake County, or it can be 12 hours, or it can be a day. It all depends on that weather system. So we cannot give you an accurate time frame of how long that weather system is gonna last until it actually shows up on our forecast. The other thing is once the weather system passes through the territory, PG&E has to patrol and inspect every inch of line that is overhead. And the reason behind that is if there's any infrastructure that's damaged or any vegetation on the lines and we re-energize the lines, it can start a wildfire, and that's the main reason why we're de-energizing the lines. So people go out in cars in 2, we have people on ATVs, and this year we have way more helicopters to inspect lines. We do have the technology and ability to isolate the damaged areas and re-energize the areas surrounding it, which does happen during a PSPS event. But once we repair all the infrastructure damage and get the vegetation off our lines, we then start to restore everyone. And just to give you an example, when I was up in Lake County in October 2018, we de-energized their power on Sunday night at 8 p.m. and that was 12,500 customers, and that was within 24 hours, 70% of those 12,500 customers were back on, and within 36 hours, everyone was back on. That outage for this entire territory, we actually de-energized 90,000 customers. So PG&E also had an earlier PSPS event this year in June 8th, where we de-energized about 1,700 customers in eastern Napa County. They were only off for 24 hours, and then up in Butte County, about 20,000 customers were impacted. So going back to the presentation, once we are able to restore everyone gets restored and they are notified. The last slide is just all the different ways PG&E has been sharing this information, but I gotta be honest with you, and a lot of you have also ran your campaigns or you're sharing information with families. Not everyone reads the flyers that you're sending them or listens to the ads that are on the radio or watches Comcast when the Giants are winning, and then they just don't pay attention to the ads. So we again, like I started this presentation, we have to educate, we have to engage, and we have to inform, and everyone in this room has to have their own plan for when one of these public safety power shutoffs actually happens. So thank you very much for the opportunity to present, and I'm not sure if you guys want to open it up for questions and answers, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you.
Do we have questions? Yeah, Director Sheffield.
How are you, Herman?
Good, good.
Did you intentionally work in a Comcast plug there when you mentioned the Giants?
Oh, wow.
Anyway, I thank you for the update, and I've seen this presentation before and do appreciate you and the work that PG&E is doing, getting out in the community and keeping us as informed as as you guys can, and making sure that we are prepared for any event that may happen. I know that schools in Southern Oregon have been dealing with wildfire conditions for the last several years, and they have in place different emergency plans, and I'm wondering if PG&E, if you are aware of how Pacific Power, I believe they operate in that region, how they have responded to the school's needs. You're coming from school board familiarity, and you know that anything can come up, and when we're talking about shutting down part of a region, part of a town, part of a city that might be impacted but another part is not, it means that everybody's impacted anyway. So to kind of give us a sense of what can we expect you know, you can't plan for the unexpected, but knowing a little bit and maybe knowing what other communities have how they've dealt with it. So I'm wondering if you guys know how Pacific Power handled this around schools.
That's a great question, and I honestly haven't had that specific question prior to this, and I haven't even heard PG&E talk about Oregon and their energy companies and how they deal with wildfires, but a lot of the public safety power shutoff, although it's new to PG&E's territory, it's not new to the state of California. San Diego Gas and Electric has been doing it for 12 years, since 2007, and we're following in their footsteps and their guidelines, and from my understanding, this is what PG&E is doing, is we are trying to engage the community to the best of our abilities. But as far as I know, is we're not providing any specific like resources or generators and things like that, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, so, and I do appreciate the response. The reason why I chose to go north instead of south is just because of the way that you know, larger communities have have a lot more options and resources available, and rerouting power is a lot easier to do in Southern California than it is up north. It might be a good idea, I'm putting this out there for the district, that, you know, perhaps we could reach out to schools in the Medford area, I think it's Medford School District, to see what they do in these instances. I mean, when I say Southern Oregon, I know that this has been going on for at least, you know, and they have smoke closure days that they've worked into their school year now, like, you know, Midwest or Eastern schools do on snow days. They just have smoke days, you know. So this might be what they already have in their you know, emergency planning. But I appreciate that. I'm also wondering, do you have somebody in mind to replace you, Herman? You're always my go-to guy, and before you was Brian, somebody that I can just pick up my cell phone and call and know that you're going to answer.
No, not yet. Not yet. They're working on finding a replacement. Currently, my manager, John Costa, is going to be stepping in as interim public affairs representative here as they transition to a new public affairs rep.
Okay, and is Daniela still?
Deanna Contreras is still working. She's our public information officer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Director McCormick, then Director Medina.
Thank you again for the presentation, and I think it was interesting to just watch the audience. I think this is bigger issue than even just the schools. Obviously, that's our concern and how it's going to impact us, but I don't think there's anyone sitting in this room that isn't interested in this information, just personally. So thank you. I really appreciate you going over it. On our agenda, at the bottom, it's got a list of key concerns, and I know we're, you know, in a new age and we're figuring this out as we go along, and I appreciate Director Sheffield talking about, you know, models that already exist out there. But I'm just wondering, I'm just putting this out to staff, Dr. Kitamura, you know, where are we on addressing these key concerns of notification on the power shutoffs, determining if we need to close schools, the daycare issue, the ADA issue? You know, there's a lot on this list, and super important. I'm glad it's listed because obviously we've prioritized things that we need to figure out here. But I'm just wondering where we are now that we're starting to learn what the process is going to look like. What does that mean for us, and where are we in that?
And not just for families, for the whole community. You have, you know, 16,000 kids who aren't in school. That's impacting the whole community. So.
And that is exactly our concern about this different kind of emergency shutdown, or whatever you want to call it, because a part of our community, school community, will be affected, but another part won't. And so our question is, so what do we do? What do we do when a part is? And the other superintendents are in the same dilemma. So luckily, Neil Bregman from the city has convened a meeting of the superintendents, and we are working, as Deputy Superintendent Edson is on this committee too, providing us what both the city is doing in conjunction with the county so that we can then determine what our plans will look like. So what we know from the fires is we cannot do this in isolation. But our concern, and I'm not sure if Herman can address this, is, you know, how long will this, if it happens, how long will it go? And we almost have to try to think of a prediction about what will happen so we can prepare for it. And I'm not sure what that looks like when part of the district is closed and part of the district isn't. In the fires, it was kind of the same situation, the October fires. I know part of the community wondered, why can't we open school when I'm not affected by the fires? In that case, the insurance companies would not let us open until we did a thorough cleaning. That wouldn't be the case with a PSPS. So we've added 2 days to our emergency J13, is that right? So that is a buffer if we closed. And we could utilize some other days, like maybe our professional development day if we had to close. But it doesn't address the fact about a partial shutdown of the district. Okay. The second piece, and this came up in my dissertation, very, very much over the top that I was surprised about, and I don't know why, I shouldn't have been, but the means for children that don't have any place to go, and meals, where meals might not be provided. And so that is something that we have to think about, and that's why we're bringing it forward to the board. We can go to, and I love that you talked about Oregon, so we will ask Oregon what they've done, we will ask San Diego what they've done, and begin bringing forward, working together with the city and the other superintendents, what we might do. So I guess a long way to answer your question, in progress. Yeah.
Thank you. Director Medina, then Director Moreno, then Director De La Cruz.
Thank you. And thank you again, Herman, for the presentation. I have a few questions. The first one is in relation to Tier 2 and Tier 3. Do you know if any and how many of the schools in our district happen to fall in a Tier 2 or Tier 3 area?
I don't think any of your schools are actually in a Tier 2 zone. Fountain Grove, northeastern Santa Rosa is, the Fountain Grove area is in a Tier 2 area. But I don't think any of your schools are actually in a Tier 2 area.
Actually, what I'm looking at is that Hidden Valley Elementary is in a Tier 3, and Carrillo is on the line of a Tier 2, and Lincoln Valley Middle is right below a Tier 2. That's what I am seeing.
Oh, gotcha.
But I'm looking at it online, but it's all, yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
But those are the only ones, yeah. I got it right in front of me, so I'm just helping you out.
The other question, I don't know if this is for you or for anybody, but in like schools that have solar panels, are they impacted by this as much, or is there power that would be available to those schools?
That's a great question. And so when power goes out, solar panels stop working, collecting energy. But if you have backup batteries on those campuses or facilities, those will kick in and they could provide backup energy or continue to capture solar rays to create energy. But yeah, so if there's a PSPS and you do not have backup batteries for your solar panels will be de-energized.
So do we know if we have backup batteries?
We do not, for the purposes of a power shutoff.
The other question is around cell towers in these situations. Let's say you didn't see all your notifications, suddenly all the power's off. If all the power's off, maybe you're trying to access stuff through your cell, but are cell towers impacted the same, or are they impacted differently?
They're all impacted differently. It all depends on their backup generators and backup generation. For a while, we knew that most cell towers have about 4 hours of backup generation, but then AT&T has corrected that. I think they have more than that. So I know for the first couple hours, if it's a mass outage, that there is backup generation for the cell towers. But if it's like a partial outage, it depends on which cell towers are out, and then there may be reception in certain areas and not in other areas.
And so given our recent data updates, do we know if our data systems have backup generators for the schools that might not be impacted, but that might be affected by if our data center is impacted by a PSPS?
Well, our data center is not in a tier 2 or tier 3 location, and most of our data is housed at class 3 or class 4 cloud storage facilities for our most important data. At the school site, excuse me, and at the district office, we do have battery backup to keep essential services running for a period of time between 45 minutes and 1 hour for essential services. We did not build in battery backup or put in generators for long-term power outages. Director Bika, who I think is still back here, has talked about the need as a future plan for generators at the district office and also at our secondary disaster recovery site in the event that we have something like this. One thing that would happen, and there's, as Superintendent Kitamura said, there's discussion amongst superintendents in the county, what happens if a power outage or a PSPS happens at 11 o'clock in the morning or 1 o'clock in the afternoon while school's in session versus, well, no power is going to be out the whole day. And that's something that we don't know yet, that we're still working with Herman and PG&E and looking at the information that they're providing us at this point, but we're not prepared, nor would we be in the short term for any outage to keep services up at a school site and or the district office for a long period of time.
As far as notifications, it seems like it's customer based. The first question is, do customers get to opt into a specific language in terms of the notification, whether it be a text, phone call, whatever?
Yes. There's like 7 different main languages spoken in our territory, so yes.
And the second question is in relation to us as a district, as a customer, given that we have so many facilities, for a customer like ourselves, are there notifications that are specific per facility, or if like one school is going to get an outage, we just get a notification that there's going to be a PSPS?
So as Herman mentioned during his presentation, we do have a direct liaison or contact. I'm not sure what her exact title is.
She's your account rep, account manager.
Account manager with PG&E, who in recent months, the last, I'll say 1 or 2 months, has made sure our contact information was updated with current contacts that the district office, myself, Eric Oden, Dave Harden, and I believe 1 or 2 others are on the contact list. If in the event a PSPS is going to take place and affect buildings in our organization, we would be the first notification, and we would get the word out to the principals and to the stakeholders as appropriate.
And, you know, given the 2017 fires, one of the biggest impacts that I saw from people that maybe weren't affected directly by the fire, but were affected by power outages for multiple days, was a major impact and loss of food. I'm wondering if PG&E has looked at or is looking at any sort of like assistance for like low-income families that suffer like dramatic loss of food due to a PSPS that lasts longer than, you know, a few days.
So this question always gets brought up, and this is the answer that I hate to give, but currently PG&E is not providing reimbursements for any food that's spoiled, because they're doing this to prevent an emergency from actually happening. But if the power were to go out and customers experienced an outage, they can actually file a claim to get reimbursed for any of their food spoilage. But for a public safety power shutoff, they're not doing anything currently. But again, almost every single day this summer, there's been changes from the California Public Utilities Commission, governor, state legislators. So some of that, definitely be on the lookout, because they're in ledge session right now and things can change. But currently, when it comes to our senior populations and our low income populations, if you do have a public safety power shutoff, PG&E is not providing any reimbursements.
In terms of, and I suspect a similar answer, but in terms of like things of like developing like battery backups for existing solar systems and things like that, do you think, has there been any talk about potentially providing something like that to school districts and such?
So there is one thing that I forgot to mention in your last question is if there is a large, or wherever there is going to be a public safety power shutoff, PG&E is dedicating to popping up these community resource centers. Basically what that is, within 24 hours of a PSPS event being called, PG&E will set up a community resource center somewhere in the vicinity of the impacted area. It can be multiple locations.
I thought I read that in Sonoma County there wouldn't be any CRCs set up. I think in that larger packet. So that Sonoma County wasn't one of those areas where CRCs would be set up.
No, so there is, no, so if the county was impacted by a PSPS, it would have community resource centers located in the impacted areas. And so a good example that this is the first year they did it. They didn't provide these last year. And in Orrville, when Butte County was out, 20,000 customers, they opened up a community resource center in one of the high school gyms. And basically how it works is that they can set up in a massive parking lot, or they can go to a school, or we're currently in process working on identifying community resource centers before an event actually happens. We've been working with the emergency managers as well as city managers and other contacts from different cities and the county emergency management team to identify these community resource centers. But Sonoma County is definitely getting them if there is a PSPS.
And I think to me, the only other thing that I think I would really want to say is that I think in large part, what I'm seeing is, after 2017 fires, I think what has been expressed a lot, and I think this will be to come, I think part of the causation of the fires is in part negligence on PG&E due to, some of the vegetation management along with the power lines. And so while I see all this as like definitely something that we need to do that probably could have happened years ago, as modeled by San Diego, I also look at it as a reduction of risk and liability for PG&E, after all, it's a corporation subject to be accountable to its shareholders. And so I think that it would be important for PG&E to do more to help us in managing these PSPS. Schools are strapped for cash, and I think this is gonna require lots of additional resources and changes for us to be able to manage with these PSPSs as time goes on. And I feel that PSPSs are in part to potentially save PG&E millions, if not billions of dollars in future with higher liability from potential wildfires. And I think that investing some money in school districts to help deal with these PSPSs, I think would be something wise for PG&E to do. So it'd be great if you could take that back to the corporation. Thank you.
I agree with you, Omar, and thank you for saying that.
Director Moreno and then Director De La Cruz.
Okay, I just had one question. So if like the PSPS event does happen, and even though it says we get notified 24 hours in advance, like how like if that affects like during school, like what's gonna happen to all the students? Are we gonna end up getting released or something? Like from school, like how is that gonna affect like us being in school?
That's one of the things that we're working with internally as well as with other superintendents to determine a plan of action. If a PSPS happens, say at 11 a.m. or 1 p.m. in the afternoon, would we release students? Would we keep them at school for the remainder of the 2 hours or 3 hours, depending on the time, using those as examples? And that's something that we're going to determine and bring back in the coming weeks.
Director De La Cruz.
Thank you, Herman, for all of your work and making sure that we're informed, and for bringing back important feedback like Director Medina's and other concerns that you heard from us tonight. One of the things that I wanted to just encourage us all to do, and staff as well, is that there's an enormous amount of legislative advocacy that's happening on behalf of fire-impacted communities, and not only fire-impacted, but also de-energization-impacted communities. For example, one of the things that Herman kind of alluded to is that because this is a planned outage, there will be no insurance coverage for any of the losses that are suffered by the districts, because essentially this was an intentional act. And so I know that those are some of the, just an example of some of the advocacy that folks are undertaking to really put the onus of the responsibility on the company that's intentionally causing this kind of loss in our community, whether it's spoiled food or missed days of school or lost hours of work for people who are most impacted by some of those things. Trying to figure out who's gonna actually pay for that stuff is gonna be really critical. And right now, the way the law is structured and liability for these things doesn't really address these huge holes that we're gonna face. And so I think it's really important for us to be connected to those legislative advocacy efforts that are happening. I know the process of kind of organizing ourselves as different jurisdictions is a little bit slower than we'd like, but there is an enormous amount of energy, I think, headed up to Sacramento to make sure that folks are thinking about us. Herman, one of the other things that I wanted to just ask and clarify is that I understand one of the things with the PSPS that is the most challenging is the amount of time that it will take the system to essentially reboot once it's shut down, and that's one of the big challenges here, as well as kind of the antiquated nature of our systems here in our semi-urban or semi-rural county is that our transmission lines are very limited, and so when one is shut down, there's kind of no way to do targeted shutdowns based on information about certain lines. So I wondered if you could speak to both kind of how long after power is shut down is it imagined to come back, and then also as to what improvements, if any, PG&E is making to be able to be more scalpel-like in its focus on those areas that are higher risk and leaving some of the folks who may not be in those areas a little bit untouched and unscathed from some of the efforts to protect other high impacted areas.
Absolutely, thank you. That was a great question, and it was multifaceted, so I'm gonna start with the first part, which is talking about the technology that is in our systems and rebooting the system. So again, it all depends on the weather. I hate saying this, I feel like a robot, but it's literally dependent on how big the weather system is and what electrical lines it's going to be impacting that are passing through tier 2 and tier 3 zones. PG&E does have the engineers, and they are investing in system hardening and technology to actually, you may have heard microgrids spoken in the past, and one of the things that PG&E did last year in Lake County when they were de-energizing the same set of lines 3 weeks apart was in October, you heard me say there's 12,500 customers that were de-energized, and then in November, 3 weeks later, we were getting ready to de-energize those same lines, but our engineers were able to reconfigure the grid so that the energy flow would not impact as many customers in Lake County. So that second time around, only 6,000 customers were impacted, and it was the same line. So there is improvements that are being made. Unfortunately, they're happening after, but I guess that's kind of being a little optimistic, is every time that they do them, our electrical engineers are able to reconfigure the grid, but they're also investing in the system hardening. To go back to the last part of your question, which was the improvements, is they've made huge improvements over the last year. It's not as fast as our customers want them to be. And I can't tell you how long a PSPS will last, because it all depends on the weather system. It depends on how many crews we have locally, and whenever there is a public safety power shutoff, I can tell you from experience, your role immediately changes to emergency response to that event. We had people coming up from Humboldt, people from Bakersfield, coming up to provide mutual aid to help us with the inspections. Some of the other thing that I think we only had 4 helicopters last year. This year we have 13. That actually expedites the inspection process. But the other part I forgot to mention is if we de-energize, it also depends on how many customers lose power. So if there's hundreds of thousands, the outage may last longer. If it's less than that, then the outage might not last that long. So it all just depends on the actual outage, that they will not actually know what's going to be de-energized until that weather system passes through.
So just my last comment, more than a question, is that I also see this as a real opportunity for us to be flexible and nimble and forward-looking for our community, to rely less on a large corporation that doesn't have the flexibility, the nimbleness, and the ability right now to really take care of us. And, you know, taking seriously our responsibility to move towards a world that is protective of our environment, of human life, and that takes really seriously our responsibility to our community. So I'm excited about that opportunity, and please let me know how I can help in any way. There's a lot of work that's happening at the county level, and to the extent that we can continue to kind of pull those partners together in these efforts to become more resilient, and to be, you know, really a community that's going to not only survive some of these events, but become a stronger, better community as a result of having survived them.
Thank you.
Director Montieri and then Director Fong.
Hi, Herman. Thank you for your presentation. I have a question, but it's not really directed, I mean, it's not really directed toward Herman or any one particular person, but I mean, I'm thinking about what Herman said about needing to engage and inform and educate our community about these shut-offs and all of the implications that come with them. And so I don't know if it's really more of a question as maybe more of a call to action, but I think that the information and the engagement and the education is gonna have to come from every single part of our system, from the district, from this governing board, from our staff. You know, our educators, I think, should definitely be a part of this too, because this is gonna impact not only their lives at work, but also at home. And so I would just like to make a call to action that whatever we can do to get the information out, that we do that. I know our communications coordinator is amazing at getting information out through social media, but to your point, Herman, about flyers, and like not everybody reads all this information or can come to a board meeting and sit through a presentation. So however we can make this information accessible is what we need to do, so that everybody is informed about these shutoffs, because there are gonna be so many people that are impacted. I really appreciate Director Medina bringing up how this is going to create some disparities in our communities who are socioeconomically disadvantaged, and I appreciate you bringing that up. So I guess it's not more really a question, but it's more of a call to action that we all need to do our part to inform one another about this. So, and also, I know that nobody looks at the flyers, but do you have them in other languages? Do you have them in Spanish or any other language?
Yeah, they're in 7 different languages.
Awesome. I would like a copy of each one.
You got
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Fong.
Thank you, Herman, for being here, for being the messenger for PG&E. Really appreciate it. And I just want to just compliment and just thank fellow board members for being so eloquent about bringing up the questions, because I'm not going to be so eloquent right now. If we ever think about education as being just education and we have our own ball of wax, that is so not true. Just because of this presentation, and we all know this, we are strategically and systematically connected to every single thing else in our community. So when we're thinking about the very small things about softball fields, which are super important, we're not putting priorities here, but this also is super important. And so our district has so much bandwidth. Our board members have so much bandwidth. Our cabinet, our superintendent has so much bandwidth. We have spent 30 minutes maybe on this already, and we're not talking about education. I mean, education with the curriculum and supporting staff and that kind of thing. So it's a little irritating to say that, but it's the reality. It's like the new normal. I learned 2 new words tonight, PSPS and de-energizate. I can't even 6 syllables. That's it. So instead of whining, I'm just going to I will say this. Our students, we have taken on the parental role. Everybody has parents, all our students have parents, but we are that parent in loco parentis, I think, in the absence of families, and we are the family of our students. So we are taking on more and more, and so we have so few resources. Why is it that PG&E is a publicly traded corporation beholden to its shareholders? That is a question I can't figure it out. I don't expect you to answer it, and it's not directed at you, Herman. And so I'm looking at their stock prices, and they fell, but they're coming back up. So where's the profit? We're the victims, we're paying for it. You eloquently talked about victims and who it's hurting. Our school district, our students, our families. Why is there a publicly traded corporation to make profit on a common good? Common good. And it's a monopoly. So I have solar, all excited because I have solar. So guess what? It won't work. Not unless I buy this $2,000 generator to bypass PG&E. So I'll stop there. That's enough.
Okay. I want to thank you, Herman, for your presentation and for the information that you provided to us, Herman. Thank you. And I didn't mean to correct you. I don't expect you to memorize where every school in the county is, or your 3-county area. But just wanted to point that out since I had the map in front of me. And thank you to the board members for all your insightful comments. And is that a hand, Director Medina? Go ahead, so before I wrap up.
It's nothing big. I just wanted to correct myself and say, yes, you're right. PG&E may like to open customer resource centers. What I was thinking of was resilient zones. Those won't be in Sonoma County, so I just wanted to say you were right.
I missed all that. So, okay.
Is that in the minutes? Him saying I'm right?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what he's talking about, but he said you're right. So you're right. So thank you for the comments and questions that particularly point out the inequities of how the PSPSs could roll out and how they affect people. I think that's really important, and all the work that we need to do to be prepared. And and I'm not going to repeat all of it, but although I would agree with all of it except for one thing, and it's actually something that Director Fong said, I'm sorry, and it's that you said that that the schools are connected to the community in a strategic and systemic way. And here's the thing, they are totally connected, but it's not strategic. And it's not systematized, and that's the problem. And when Dr. Kitamura and I talked at CSBA and a couple other places after the fires, one of the things we talked about was that our responses, and really your staff's response most of all, was completely by the seat of your pants. Amazing, well executed response. Just figuring it out, building the plane while you're flying it kind of thing, as well as on the board level and all of us together. And the way we interacted with other agencies and other organizations was through personal relationships that already existed. It was by text messages and group text messages because we had personal relationships, but it was not because there was a system. And it is not because there was a plan. And I think that needs to be real clear. And to this day, while the city, and I say this all the time, while the city and the county, they count on us for lots of things, and they're on our backs when we have to close, and because we need, our citizens to get to work, and they need the kids to get to school so the citizens can get to work, and why the heck aren't you opening, or they count on us for lots of things. They don't interact with us well. They cancel meetings with us. They don't schedule meetings with us. You have to badger them to talk to us, and I'm talking to you, talking to some specific people who know that who they are, and it's a problem. It's a real problem. So until the city managers and the staff level at the county and the elected level at the cities and the counties really start working with the school district as partners instead of just demanding that we open up when they want us to open up, then we don't have a system and we don't have a strategy, and it's a problem. And we can't keep relying on our personal relationships and who, you know, Diane and I or whoever else is going to be sitting in this chair and her chair, who they have in their cell phone. So something like, so Stephanie's right, or Director Manieri's right, that this is a call to action, and I'm going to call to action the government and organizational officials to say, you need to start working with us as real partners, because that's a problem. We have 40 districts in this county, that's a problem, but really what's SCO doing also to say we're the biggest district, but we're not the only district who's gonna be dealing with this. And so shouldn't there be some kind of system, shouldn't there be some kind of strategy that we can all rely on and develop together in a way that can protect our students, protect our families, protect our dollars, because they are scarce. Our students and families are valuable, they are humans and we need to protect them, and our dollars are scarce. So I will take this as, so Herman, you did a great job tonight. This is all not about you, of course, but we do have a problem in the lack of strategy and system. I know that Diane and her staff are working the best they can to have a good district response, and I am super proud of, and I think that's, you know, one thing in our district we all agree on, super proud of our response to the fires in our district, but you know, we don't know how things are going to roll out in the future, and we don't know how often we're going to have these shutoffs and how they're going to affect us. And so I am publicly calling on city and county and other districts to really start working together and to develop some real strategy and system, because you know, we can't just rely on a handful of dedicated staff members to stay up all night on group text and make it all happen by the seat of their pants, and for that to work out all right every time. You know, there was some talent and some passion and some dedication that helped us pull it off the first time, and I'm gonna say probably the planets aligned in our favor also. There was probably a lot of luck involved. So, and it would be arrogant to think otherwise. So I think we need to be humble and say we need to do a little bit better planning, and that can't just be our district. We are not in a vacuum. We are connected to everything, but it's not strategic. So let's get strategic.
I second that.
So Sean, return your calls.
One last little comment. So in the attachments to this board item is the county's operational area emergency operations plan, which is attempting, I think, I mean, schools had a bolded, underlined section in the plan that was about this big, but I would love for everybody to read it, because I think it has what I think is the county's best efforts right now to really imagine everybody's roles in this and what we can expect to occur, and how we can expect at least the county to respond and attempt to take us into consideration. And there's been a lot of changes at the county level with regard to the structures of the county to be more nimble, more flexible, and more strategic. And to the extent that we can plug into that, I'm happy to, again, make sure that we've got those kind of cables in place, because there is a lot of good strategic work that's happening, and it's just about having a seat at that table.
If I may add, Ms. President, I'm not about throwing shade, I'm about throwing sunshine, and I actually would like to, I think the county has done, Mr. Godley and his team have done an amazing job working with the city. I don't disagree with you that they don't include educators being on the Sonoma County Board of Education. There's been other issues that we've had where we're not part of the conversation, we're more on the side or on the menu. But I think that Chris Godley and Neil Bregman have been working together, and I've been working closely with them, and I think it just takes some more texting, emailing, Facebook chatting, nagging to try and get more engaged on the planning process. But they definitely created an amazing document. So
I totally agree, and I think that Chris Godley particularly, I would applaud him, and I think you're right. But there is I mean, believe me, you know, we're out, you know, all the time in the community working and trying to say, hey, don't forget us, except for when you want to yell at us because our schools aren't open yet, and that needs to, and you know, we need to keep saying that. We need to say it publicly, and we need to say it constantly. We need to say, you know, we can't just be your partners when it's convenient. When you need our facilities for town hall meetings, when you need to open us up because we're not just schools, but we're the biggest, basically, daycare providers in the county so people can go to work, it needs to be on the planning stages, it needs to be on the front end, and that's not the case. So you're right, those folks are doing a great job in their roles, and there needs to be some improvement in terms of incorporating us as community partners.
Sonoma Ready Day, September 8th. No, I'm just kidding.
Thank you.
Okay, for extended school year update.
Just gonna take us a second here to get everybody down to the table.
How about we take a 5-minute break, really 5 minutes?
Great.
No, yeah, I thought that was perfect.
You both like.
Exactly. All right, I think that 5 minutes is going to be over 6 or 7 minutes ago.
Yep.
So we will call the meeting back to order and go to F4.
Good evening, Superintendent Kitamura, President Close, members of the board. Tonight you're going to have a presentation on the extended school year update, K-12. As you see around the table, we have members from all of our programs, and they're going to be sharing a summary and some data. As you know, we do not have our technology tonight. However, you do have the PowerPoint attached. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Kelly Dillon.
All right, well, good evening. Please enjoy all those lovely pictures of the happy children. We really wanted you to be able to see that, or the audience to be able to see that, but that's kind of the main piece, right? It's the children, and so hopefully you see lots of smiling faces there. Each summer, we are pleased to offer extended school year programs that include enrichment as a primary goal, but also support for our high school students in completing courses to be on course to graduate. This summer, enrollment for our extended learning programs reached 1,732 students. And so tonight, we have administrators from our different programs who are going to introduce themselves and then share a little bit about the number of students they served and what their programs offered students. So I'm going to turn it over to them.
Do you I have a loud voice. I don't need the I actually have. Thank you. And this feels awkward. Okay, sorry. Good evening. Oh, you're Lori. You're amazing. I'll take that. Now I can look at you guys. Good evening, President Close, Superintendent Kitamura, and members of the board. My name is Aida Diaz, and I was the summer school principal for the Investigation Summer School, which was held at James Monroe. We served a little over 200 students, K-8 through 5th grade. District-wide, we were able to provide 3 weeks of engaging hands-on activities with a focus on language arts and mathematics. The activities range from building bird feeders, straw towers, egg drop, computer coding, just to name a few. We also had the pleasure of working with Julieta Velasquez, a binational teacher from Mexico, thanks to the Migrant Education Program. She taught some of the classes traditional dances, songs, games from different regions in Mexico. I actually got to participate in some of them. I am not very good at them. The kids beat me every time. She also offered a parent enrichment class that was well attended. We had over 38 parents at the workshop. And I can't thank enough all the teachers and classified staff for such a great program. That's all.
Okay, my name is Julia Cooper, and I had the pleasure of being the principal at the Project Make Summer Camp. And first off, thank you. Many of you showed up to our showcase, which was really fun. We had 85 students, grades 4 through 7 at the camp, and we had 4 classes. There was a Listening for Change, where community members came in and talked about their migration stories, immigration, and students got to ask them about it and do a video about it. And then we had a course called Touch of Japan, where they learned taiko drumming and they made sushi. And then we had Rocket Science, where they learned all about physics and math, and they did an egg drop at the end, and they actually shot off the rockets and had to see if their egg was still intact when it landed, which was really fun to see. And then we had Adventures in Photography, which the students learned all about how to take different pictures and frame things and dress up and tell stories. We also thought it was really important that we had enrichment opportunities this year, so we had a field trip to the Lawrence Hall of Science in Berkeley. And then we had the STEAM Museum, it's a mobile STEAM lab, came to us and presented to the students. And then we also had 2 really lovely restorative specialists on campus, the entire camp, and they did restorative circles with our kids, and then they also made sensory bottles for kids that were having harder times focusing, so they had something to kind of fidget with to focus in class. So those were things they got to leave with those tools. So we loved it, and thank you very much for coming and seeing it.
Hello, I am happy to be here.
I know we're not in sequential order.
Hi, I'm Ronnie Goyle, and I have the pleasure of working with the Santa Rosa Chamber with the Mike Hauser Academy, and this was our 12th year, and we had quite a year. We had 160 students this year, an increase of 70 students. We had 130 of those 160 were SRCS students, an increase of 70 students from over the last year. We had over 22 businesses supporting these students, and this enrichment opportunity really is focused on the STEM careers. We had one student say that he learned a lot, but what he really learned was how many careers involve STEM concepts. And as this program is about STEM, I looked at the grades that these students had this past year. 55 out of 60 of the Mike Hauser students that participated last summer passed both math and science. So we're really seeing an impact of the Mike Hauser Academy. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how this past summer, 130 students have done. A project that they competed in or completed was they were challenged with determining a weight of an unknown object using a spring, a set of known weights, and their math skills. They got to work together in teams, they collected data, they graphed the results, and one group got to within 0.4 grams of their actual weight. So these students really saw the application of STEM in careers, and we're really excited to continue the program and looking forward to our 13th year.
Good evening. I'm Elizabeth Evans, Director of Teaching and Learning, and I'm so happy to see you all tonight and to talk about the Mariachi Art and Dance Camp, which served 171 students this year from our attendance area, Santa Rosa City area. There were 9 fewer students than last year. However, the number of students that are from Santa Rosa increased. We actually had 76 Santa Rosa City school students this year, and we had about 59 last year. So we have an increase in our students who participated. And we also have 15 of our high school students who received 5 units of credit for their participation in the program. That's very exciting that we implemented that a couple of years ago. We also had a restorative specialist who was on hand to work with the students. And it was just a fantastic event. It ends with the big reception and the performance, and there are hundreds of parents there, and it's a fantastic event, and we just so appreciate our collaboration with the Luther Burbank Center for the Arts and what it does for our kids. Thank you.
Good evening, Monique Luke, and I was co-principal with our extended school year program this year with Valerie Jordan, and we served 238 students total, 100 elementary students, 58 middle schoolers, 51 high school students, and 9 adult transition program students, 31 teachers, 7 special services professionals, a nurse, speech and language therapist, a school psychologist, what have you, and 37 instructional aides. And I'm going to pass this to you.
And from that, our students that attended engaged in college and career activities, academic and social skills, behavioral skills. They did CBIs, which are community-based instructions. We had partnerships with Mary's Pizza, Santa Rosa City Transit came out and presented so that our students could use the transit system throughout the 20 days of ESY. We also worked with some of our other opportunities were guest speakers that came to classrooms, and the movie series, 3rd Street really works well with us. And we had students in 5th and 6th grade that came to City Hall and spoke to City Council and had debates. That was really great for them. That was the 2nd year they did that, the 5th and 6th graders. They also went to Spring Lake Environmental Center this year, bowling at Double Deckers or Windsor Bowling. And then several of them went to museums, children's museums, or the museum, Luther Burbank Gardens, or the museum downtown by Macy's. So, and it finished with the field day. So Monique was there for field day, and it was a huge success.
Good evening. I am Greg Hauser, and I was co-principal for, there were 2 sessions. Session 1 was 3 weeks in June, and session 2 was 3 weeks in July. For the first session, I was co-principal with Andrea Correa, and for the second session, I was principal with Amy Stevens. Summer school was held at Elsie Allen this summer, and for session 1, we served 615 students, and for session 2, we served 342 students. It was pretty much traditionally led classes, and we also had 2 classes of Cyber High for each session, with a total, out of all the credits, 995 total credits were earned by the students. 177 courses were completed online, and I do have to say that probably my favorite part was when seniors who had not yet graduated would complete their credits on Cyber High. They would come into the office and we would just immediately burst into applause because they would complete their credits enough to graduate from high school, and then they were off to their home campus to receive their diploma from the registrar. So we always gave them a big smile and shook their hands and made a big deal out of that, and that was super fun.
Okay, well, I want to first of all thank all the administrators, the classified staff, the teaching staff. You know, even though we began planning for our extended learning programs now for the following summer, it's, you know, they're working hard all year to do their regular job, and then to plan and execute a program that happens in 3 or 6 weeks is a big push and takes a lot of commitment and energy from them. And so I thank them for making it fun and engaging and committing to continuing the learning for students in the summer. And so, like I said, we start thinking about next year now, or maybe even on the last day of summer school. And so as we think to next year, we're thinking about some of the things that we want to do. First and foremost, continue the enrichment programs. We want to provide more and more opportunities for students to be engaged in things that they might not otherwise get to participate in. One of those opportunities that we could not do this year, just due to some issues with Sonoma State not having the ability to support us, was the Excel for Youth program. So a couple years ago, we shared with you that after the fires, we had some Redwood Credit Union funds that allowed us to support that program, Excel for Youth, and that was at Lehman. And the feedback on that was amazing. And so we will continue to look to partnering with them and other members and organizations in the community that might be able to support us with opportunities out there. In addition, some things that we're looking at is utilizing Avid summer enrichment programs for students transitioning from elementary to middle and middle to high. And then really, this is the work we do all the time, but really the focus on building a coherent, systematic teaching and learning program where we are doing best first instruction and working hard together to collaborate and make sure the day-to-day learning environment is strong for our students. And so that is something we do each and every day, but something that we'll continue to focus on. So with that, I thank everyone for being here to present with us and share today, and turn it over to the board for any questions or comments.
While the board is deliberating, Amy Stevens is right here, so. Yeah. Come to the microphone so it's on tape.
The only thing that I would add is that, as Diane was saying earlier, Dr. Kitamura was saying earlier, there's sometimes no place for kids to go. They don't have food. They might need food. We provide lunch. We provide a place for them. There were a lot of kids that connected at summer school. So that was really nice to see. Along with that is the A through G requirements at high school. Some kids are just not developmentally prepared. They might not be academically ready, and summer school gives them another shot at that curriculum. So summer school's needed.
Director De La Cruz, then Director Sheffield.
Just had 2 points to make. And first, thank you so much for all of your work over the summer when other folks in the profession are resting. You guys are kicking booty. Thank you. I was talking to somebody about, how middle schools can tend to be, directed at each other, and kind of there can be some beef that happens, right, as you go from elementary to middle school to high school. And one of the things that I heard from a number of community members is that summer programs where kids from different schools get to hang out with each other. They get to know each other, and then as they transition into middle and high, they're buddies, and instead of being like, oh, I go to Cook, oh, I go to Comstock, well, I go to Santa Rosa Middle, and there's a community that's created as a result of being in these programs that are also directed at who these kids are. And so I just want to share a story about my son doing mariachi camp and being one of those really proud parents in the audience. And I was sitting with my dad. My dad is 73. And, you know, as all of the parents, I'm gonna cry. As we were all kind of watching the final, you know, song, our kids are up there, they're singing their hearts out, they're dressed in traje de mariachi. The LBC is full of Mexicanos, which you don't see all the time. And everybody was just so proud. And I look over and my dad is just tears streaming down his face. And I asked him, I said, why are you crying? He said, you know, I just feel so lucky that Ome gets to feel really proud of who he is, and then he has this opportunity to be on stage, you know, singing mariachi music, because I don't remember a time when I was a kid where I ever had an opportunity to feel really proud of where I came from, you know, at his age. And I'm happy the world has changed so much for him to be able to do that. So he was able to do that because you guys made this happen. And so I know my dad would want to be here saying thank you too for that opportunity to be so proud of where he comes from and watching his grandson sing his heart out on that stage, music that we listen to in our kitchen. So yeah, I think these programs are so critical for just the ongoing health and larger sense of community in our schools, and I'm so grateful for all of your work. Thank you.
Director Sheffield.
Thank you guys for the presentation, and thank you guys for all that you do all summer long. Very much appreciated. I know that the district really appreciates it all. I had a question, or actually an observation, looking at the students served and looking at it through the past 5 years, and it fluctuates up and down, the number of students served or attended. And it was down from last year, 2018 numbers, and I'm wondering if things were up because of the fire, and then down, probably declining enrollment. But I guess it was mentioned A through G. I just expected enrollment, especially for the credit recovery part, to be higher this year because of that. And I'm wondering if what was done to pull these students into these programs that are really struggling to meet the new graduation requirements. And when we see that reflected in next year, I mean, I'm anticipating that we should see that higher.
I can let Greg or Amy speak to this a little bit, but the first part I'll say is that after the fires, we did a really big push to work with our partners around trying to provide many opportunities for summer enrichment. And as Director Dillon just talked about, with the partnership with Sonoma State, just due to some of the constraints that they had, and they definitely want to come back, that's also a reflection of the lower numbers. Primarily, this summer was focusing on juniors and seniors with credit recovery. As you know, with the implementation of our new graduation requirements, it was for freshmen, and Dr. Goyle has been working with her math department chairs and looking at ways to be able to address those students who did not pass, and we'll be coming back to the board with some data around that in the next month or so. Also with some of our work with MVP Math, with Karina Huey, you're gonna hear about that as well. Really looking at that option for third-year mathematics and really looking at that differently so that students have options. But that is something that we're discussing in teaching and learning about how to address those students who may not have had the opportunities or did not do well their freshman year, and how we can address that. And so I think we're gonna have to look at that differently for summer school next year.
Well, and I appreciate that. I just want to make sure that we are staying focused on our commitment when we went through the A through G approval process, that we were really going to be focusing on these incoming freshmen and making sure that they are getting the attention. And if it means shifting and giving a lot more attention there, I think that's what it's needed, because that was the promise that we made. Now that we'll see and be able to track these freshmen for the incoming freshmen this year, we'll be able to see their progress for the next 4 years. I just want to make sure that the district is giving them the attention that that we promised them.
Yeah, I think that one of the greatest commitments that the board has made with regard to that support is the approval of the 28-to-1 in math, science, English for freshmen. So I think that's one thing. We are dissecting the numbers right now. In fact, we were looking at them today. Dr. Goyle is dissecting them, and so I don't want to say anything prematurely, but I just ask the board to remember that when we look at Math 1 in particular, and the asset side of it about who's passed A through C, or you can look at the other side, D's and F's, you have to consider algebra readiness the year before and the fail rate of algebra readiness. And I know people disagree with me, they don't want to look at both algebra readiness and Math 9 from the previous year in comparison to Math 1, but we have to, because that's two sets of freshmen that are now not taking algebra readiness or pre-algebra, but taking Math 1. So we're bringing that forward along with the LPAC data and the CASP data, the state testing data. And I think that preliminarily what I see is there are more students who now have an opportunity to continue, more students have an opportunity to continue on A through G because more students have passed with an A through C than last year in college prep math. So I'm gonna put myself on a limb out there because that was the preliminary data I looked at. And we can say, I can be wrong, but that's just what I looked at very quickly. And so, in addition to that, I think that the greatest support has been over the, gosh, this is my 7th year, is the professional development that our teachers have had over the years in preparing for students to have the quality instruction in the Common Core. And so, I cannot not stress enough how much professional development our teachers have gone through to support A through G instruction. And again, people will disagree with me because it wasn't labeled professional development for A through G, but it was professional development for Common Core standards, so.
And thank you. Something that you had mentioned, had sparked, I also wanted to comment on the Mike Hauser Academy and wondering if we saw an increase or decline in student enrollment participation over the summer, because now you guys have the data that show that students that go through this program are succeeding on all the measurements and the tests, and that's really important. If that means that the district can focus on expanding, or the county can focus on expanding the academy, that's one way to get our students engaged and prepared.
Yes, and I think that the staff has done a fabulous job. I remember when the numbers were 40 and 50 in the Mike Hauser Academy, and to have as many as that we have participating now is awesome. I also wanted to say that our CASP scores are also going to be an indicator, not a single measure, but an indicator of where our kids in both ELA and math. And then finally, what I also want to say is our numbers fluctuate for summer school depending on the availability of teachers. And let's be frank, this last year was, last couple years between the fire and all that's gone on, it's been tough. And I think teachers were tired, and I don't blame them for wanting to take a rest. We could not get the number of teachers we needed for the capacity of the number of students who had the need.
Right, but that's the exact reason why we need to stay true to our commitment when we talk about A to G. And we did promise to offer and committed, put ourselves out there that we would be offering the support that was needed for the students. And I just, as I started with my comments, I want to make sure that we stay true to that commitment. And if it means reaching out and getting more participation from teachers through the summer, that's what it takes, because that was our commitment.
Yes, we agree with you, and we did open up to outside our district as well. We've been doing that for a number of years, and so we'll just have to start recruiting earlier. Yeah.
Okay, Director McCormick, Director Fong, then back to Director De La Cruz, then Director Medina, then Director Manieri.
All right. thank you again for all your hard work, and thank you for being leaders in our district. Enrichment programs are near and dear to my heart, and I think it's a key to retention and participation and interest and attendance and all these things that we talk about. So I really appreciate you taking the time to be leaders and help like fan the flame in some of our students in some areas that they might not get traditionally in their classes. And I know we've heard it thematically in public comments tonight and some of our agendas items tonight and comments from the board that, you know, Santa Rosa City Schools is trying to be so much for so many people, and it needs to be that, and so there's moments of where we're stretched really thin. And so I understand that, and I understand that there are daily things in the regular school year that we really need to, you know, get more support in areas, and we talk about, you know, it's a big, slow process on change and really identifying what we need and how we're gonna do it. But I think that just when you see how powerful these even 3 weeks, 6 weeks programs are in the summer, you know, we just need more enrichment programs during the school year like this. And I know we're stretched thin, but I think we need it. And I know as a high school teacher, former high school teacher and a JC teacher, that at the high school level, there's a lot of times when kids are only taking like 4 periods a day their junior, senior year because they've met their minimum graduation requirements. And I think that's just tragic. And a lot of times they're at the JC taking programs there, but I feel like there's an opportunity, especially at that secondary level, to expand some enrichment electives, and there's always the things that are kind of on the chopping block when we are struggling with budget, but obviously this is just a snapshot of what the impact that these things can have, these enrichment programs can have. So just wanted to put my 2 cents out there and say that thank you, and we need more of it, and I think we need to put it into our daily year-round schedules because I think it's key to student interest, student engagement, and student retention.
Director Fong.
Good job, everyone. I was really lucky to get to go to the Maker Project Maker Camp, summer school, extended learning, and a teacher pulled me aside, actually 2 teachers pulled me aside, and were just raving about how they were able to do these different kinds of things, and that we should really take a look at the kids there who were just, could hardly wait to get to school, could hardly wait to read and write, could hardly wait to do their projects. And so they just wanted to tell the regular teachers what a great kid this was and how smart this kid was and like that. So I'm starting to think about how we have extended learning into summer school. We should have extended summer school into regular learning. Let's think about that. And so if the kids are so engaged and they're getting up on their credits, and every high school student I've talked to who've gone through the summer school, they loved it. They love summer school. In fact, they love summer school for high school so much that I think that they don't do their work in regular school, because when we threaten them with summer school, they go, bring it on, I love summer school. I have nothing else to do in the summer anyway, is what, you know, some of the answers. And, you know, they also say it's easier, but I don't believe when they say it's easier. I just know that they're able to handle it because they have 3 hours of school and not 6 hours of school for all different reasons. But if we talk again strategically, and we talk again about the future, not to take away from anything that anyone did, extending the way we do summer enrichment or extended learning into our classrooms, what are the barriers to our teachers and our site principals, staffs, to do that kind of work? You know, we hear class sizes, we hear classroom sizes, we hear resources, and of course the budget, right? We hear all of that. But what are the barriers to where kids are losing that love of learning? And it goes back to the teachers in the classroom. The teachers in the classroom have the heart and the passion. The kids recognize that. I've talked about this before, and that's always there. But really, we need to support those teachers and those classrooms for these kinds of things. So I'd like to challenge us all to think about how do we change up how we deliver education so that we get this kind of summer school extended learning year round. And not just for some kids, maybe 10% of the student body only gets it. And I noticed that the schools are mostly on the west side. I didn't see any of the east side schools having any kind of program, so that's a question I have about that too. I'm also interested in what are the demographics? Which kids go to extended learning? Why are these kids going to extended learning? Why are some other kids not going to extended learning? And if we bring this view backwards a little bit, and we're talking about attendance, improving attendance, chronic absenteeism. We have kids who are anxious, who can't go to school for 6 hours a day or 7 hours a day. What would happen if they got to go to school less time during the day, longer time during the year? And how would that help us? I mean, all different ways to think about how we do school. And here's a perfect example of engagement and passion and spreading things out and less anxiety for their kids who are phobic or anxiety-ridden. So I challenge us to keep thinking strategically about how we deliver things. This actually has been going on for some years, pretty much the same. Bells and whistles a little different, but pretty much the same. So how can we use this incredible time resource and the money we're putting into this to affect more kids, more strategically, as a district? And if we're talking about teacher employment and can't get people in for the summer, let's talk about SRTA. Let's talk about how do we reconfigure teacher contracts. And so maybe somebody wants to not teach during the winter months and they want to teach during the summer months. There's so many different ways to handle this and to take, entry points into this. So I'd like to see us think about these things in different ways.
Director De La Cruz, then Director, then Director Medina, then Director Manieri.
My question is very similar along the lines of Director Fong's question, which is how are these kids kind of put into these programs, and when are they identified as being a good match for the program that's set up? And then why isn't it more available to kids from all throughout the district as an opportunity to also diversify the population that's attending these programs and not to kind of slot it to a certain kind of kid? So I would be also very interested in the demographics of the program and the home schools of each of the kids. And then I would really love to know more about how you identify which kids are going into which programs. My experience with this was that we got the kind of flyers notifying us of the opportunity really late in the season. Most Sonoma County parents know you have to start signing up your kids for summer programs like February 1. And I think most of the flyers came out like last month of school when a lot of kids were already doing other stuff. So I just, again, how are we shuttling kids in, and how are we making this opportunity to provide kind of extended learning to all kids in the district and to also really diversify the population that is participating in these?
So I'm happy to bring back an information item about the statistics about the demographics and also the information about how children were chosen for these programs. I will say though that this summer was a little bit challenging as finding facilities, as we did have so much going on from maintenance and operations, and so we basically just picked sites that we could have access to. So and also I will tell you that at least for the high schools, it does rotate throughout. With the elementary, we do keep it maybe traditionally more on one side, but we have to really deal with busing in a different way, but we will bring back all that information through an information item.
Director Medina.
Thank you. Well, first off, I think we could all agree all these programs are great. My first question actually is around funding. I know some of the programs are a certain amount of students are from SRCS, so I'm curious as to what is the cost per pupil to the district for the various programs? Do we have that information easily available?
It's actually in our LCAP. The summer program, extended program, has been a priority for our LCAP supplemental funds. And so we can get the line item. I can't tell you off the top of my head what it is, but, and then we can, it would be a divisor. But were you asking about something around Santa Rosa City School students and something else you said in there about?
Sorry, it wouldn't light up. Yeah, so with like programs that are, you know, students from throughout the city, but there's portions that are like, I think one of them was like
mariachi. What are you talking about?
That's an example. So is there, in terms of the funding of the program, what is the specific impact to Santa Rosa City Schools, and is it, do we pay like just a portion of the program? Do we pay any of it? Is it all outside funded? That's kind of what I'm getting at in terms of the different programs. I'm trying to like figure out, like, are some programs more financially efficient than?
Yeah, so I think mariachi might be our only program that is also, we allow students from outside the district to attend.
Yes, that's correct. In the partnership with the Luther Burbank Center for the Arts, the program is open to all Santa Rosa City School students. They do sort of encourage more students who have fewer opportunities to participate. But yeah, we pay a certain amount of money, we provide some resources, and then they provide a lot of the organization, the flyers. It's a true partnership with them.
I will tell you, my philosophy about it was that if we had open space, that we should share. Because it isn't solely Santa Rosa City Schools money, it's also the partnership with the LBC. I would have to say that even if the LBC didn't, I'd still share, because eventually they're gonna come to our schools maybe in the secondary, and they'll already be trained for mariachi. So that, I believe, is the only program.
Mike Hauser, too, has students from other schools.
But we do.
So because this is a partnership with the Santa Rosa Metro Chamber, and they also encumber about half the cost, that's why we also have Roseland students. So last summer, it was 30 Roseland students, and this summer was 30 Roseland students, but the majority of the students are Santa Rosa City Schools.
Okay.
And we can get a per student cost. We can include it on that information item.
Thank you. The other question is around the high school summer program. I'm curious if you could go more into the specific 2 sessions. How does that work?
Each session is 12 days, and so that's pretty much how it works, where session 1 would be, in each session, the students can recover 5 credits. If they're in Cyber High, they could recover more credits depending on how many classes they take online. But typically, if they're in a regular classroom, they would, and usually they're taking that class if they failed a particular class during the school year, so they can make up those 5 credits during the summer program. So if they're in a regular classroom, they would be able to recoup 5 credits for session 1 and then 5 credits for session 2.
So in the regular classroom, it's so in a session, it's just like one course all day long,
yes.
The same thing?
Yes, and so it's a little bit longer than 3 hours. They have 2.5 hours, then a half-hour break, then another 2.5 hours, but it's the same teacher and the same course for the entire day. So it's really like if they failed first semester of English, they would be able to recoup first semester of English in the first session.
And I'm curious, in relation to this, I'm curious, I think well, first off, I loved doing summer school. Not only did I go to LC, but I went to Pioneer, Santa Rosa, and Montgomery, all because I love to go to summer school. And I'm curious as to at what point or why did we transition from, like, I think when I did it, there was 2 tracks. You'd have like 2 classes, and it would be 6 weeks, I think it was. And I'm wondering why we would do that, because I just imagine doing the same thing for like 5-6 hours. I'd be like super bored.
Yeah, they made a conscious effort, a conscious decision 3 years ago now, to put it into first semester, second semester, rather than, continuous all throughout, so then a student could basically get finished in the first part of summer school or be done with just the second part of summer school rather than having to stay the whole time.
And I'm also curious to find out funding for that. Do we get like state ADA type of funding and nothing like that for summer school?
We fund it completely through the LCAP. That's why I think we are an anomaly in terms of a summer program. We get people from outside of the district, like who want to move here to go to our summer program. But we think it's important, and so we have made it a priority in the LCAP. But we don't get an ADA for it.
I mean, I think I would just add, like, for me, like, summer school was so important, just to just keep me out of trouble. I mean, I loved school, but, you know, I have no shame in saying during the regular academic year, I intentionally failed English every year because I couldn't hang with, like, a long semester classes of English. I was really good at it. I just didn't want to do all that work for so long, so I would intend to do it in the summer. But it sounds like if I were a student now, I wouldn't have that opportunity, so I'd probably fail English and potentially not graduate.
I could have been your teacher, right? We were talking about the same thing.
I just get bored really easy when something's not challenging me. But yeah, so I think it's concerning to me not to be able to have like those programs for kids that were like me now. So it's a problem that we need more money for, like we need more money for everything else. But I do think that we do need to have like programs such as these and other programs that really offer students the opportunity to really like, you know, engage their minds and, I mean, not be bored during the summer, because what's that saying, like, idle hands are like the devil's playground or something? Yeah, summers could be bad if you got nothing to do.
Dr. Manieri.
Thank you for that wonderful presentation. I get really excited when I see pictures. I know the audience can't see the presentation, but I love seeing the pictures of students having a good time and doing amazing things. And I had a really good time I went to the, what was it? The same event that Director De La Cruz was talking about at the LBC, and it was such a wonderful experience. The showcase, I sounds really weird, but I probably have like a ton of pictures of those cute little kids in their mariachi outfits in my phone. It's just like all over my gallery. But I go to like all the events. I love watching those kids. I just wanted to echo Director McCormick's and Director Fong's comments about extended learning being kind of extended into the school year, because I think that there is a lot of really great opportunity. There are a lot of, I won't say a lot, but there are programs in the community that exist to enrich the academic experience of our students. And so I think that there's a real opportunity there to do more partnerships. I think that the Mike Hauser Academy is a really great model for what a successful partnership can look like and the outcome of that. And so I'm gonna put a shameless plug in for, I run an internship program for youth ages 16 to 25, and we actually have a huge cohort from Pioneer High School that participates every single year in the program. And last year we had 19 interns. This year I run a cohort of 39 interns. And so this program is open to any student in Sonoma County. And I've had a big challenge recruiting from Montgomery High School, Elsie Allen High School, and Maria Carrillo High School. And so I would love to get more of our district students into our program and talk, partnerships and true community collaboration, because it exists. And I think that the program I run is school year long intentionally to help students who are going through the school year. So they exist, and I think there's a great opportunity for greater collaborations to enrich academic experience.
Can I make a comment to that? I actually met with your ED a couple weeks ago. We had some coffee, and so we had some good brainstorming about how to incorporate more students. So, and you're right, that program is amazing that you are running, so I concur.
Right, thank you. Thank you for your great report. Thank you for your really outstanding work. I love this report every year because you do really great things in the summer, and I know the kids really benefit from it. And you all love it. Like, you're all just sitting there, but you look giddy and kind of goofy, actually. You're all just sort of dazed and smiley and happy. And so it's, and you're making a difference if that's how you're feeling about it, and it's good. And in terms of, starting at the end of summer to plan for the next year, one of the things, because we all agree that this needs to be available to more people, more students, that we got to figure out how to recruit more staff so that we can open up these opportunities for people. I also would be interested in hearing about the demographics of the students that we serve, and figuring out how they're identified, and figuring out how we can really grow this. And that starts with staffing, and I know that's challenging. So if we can start doing some real creative thinking around that. And then, and I think this kind of piggybacks on Director Fong's comments. One of the things I've been talking recently with a couple people about our college experiences and current college students' experiences about the difference between the quarter system and the semester system, right? And how, the kind of grind of the semester system is really hard, and the fast-paced quarter system where you have longer classes and you can concentrate on fewer things for a shorter period of time really works for people and works for most students, I think. And I think that's probably why lots of students can be successful in the summer where they can't during the school years. They can focus on one or two things in a concentrated way. And Director Fong often talks about, blowing up the current system, and that makes Diane nervous. And but and looking about how we use time, and I do think there's such success and engagement in the summer model and how that works, that's something that we should be looking at. Are there ways to incorporate that model or bring that model into the school year that makes it less of a grind, not just for students but for teachers? Like, that's a long, the semester long model is it's a grind. Is there a better way to do it? So those are kind of things I think we can be thinking about, and I know you guys are always thinking about how to do it different and how to do it better, and so I would encourage that line of thought. Thank you.
I think it's going to come from the work we do with the Ridgeway students. Their voices are going to help us guide what school's going to look like differently in Santa Rosa City schools as we work together with Dr. Acosta and Karina Huey. I can't wait for the work to begin with teachers and students and staff, and for the staff to be able to come do the first board report on it in, I think, January. Don't worry, blow up what you want. I'm right there, so I'm okay.
Director Fong.
Just one more thing in terms of not doing things differently for that sake. I know that's not what you're saying, but how do we keep serving our student body and our families? And it's always changing. And so we also need to change. There's that phrase growth mindset that I'm kind of sick of, but it really means how do we keep adapting to serve our stakeholders, and that's what it's really about. And blowing things up, that's a negative connotation, but sometimes you just have to. Okay, so. But you're experts, and we're counting on you to start thinking of the ways to do that. And Diane, yes, I know you can do that.
Hey, this team is right there. It begins with the adults, folks. So the change begins with the adults. Okay, let's move on.
Yeah, thank you. All right, F5, discussion item, update to board policy 5127, graduation ceremonies and activities.
So I bring this forward, and a little bit differently. I bring forward, normally we bring board policy forward as a first reading and a second reading, with action expected at the first and the second reading. I want to provide as much opportunity for public input as possible. So I talked to President Close and said, I'd like to bring this forward, not for action, but purely for discussion, and to get feedback and to find out. So the first thing I want to do is I want to apologize that for the proposed board policy, we should not have put Santa Rosa City Schools. We should have put that it was a CSBA sample policy, because that's what it is. It's just a sample policy. When you look at the current policy, That is, in fact, the current policy with all the details that our staff depends on in order to do their work. I think there was some concern that we were throwing away all of that and that the new proposed would not have any of that, and that is not the case. What we bring forward for first reading and second reading will be what is written here in the actual board policy 5127, okay, with all the details. And what we're asking to add is the legal requirement of the, the regalia. Yeah, the regalia. And also we're asking for there to be consideration of neutral colored gowns, one color rather than two colors. Let's see, Carrillo and Montgomery are already a single color. Elsie Allen was already going to move to a single color. Ridgeway is a single color. And so I wanted to provide that information. So if that is, I just wanted to kind of explain my rationale and my thinking about bringing this forward this way, get feedback from the board. Would they rather me just do first reading, second reading? You know, really trying to open this up for input, not only from you, but also from stakeholders. So is that any questions about kind of my rationale? I'll do it a little differently, I think, next time. I think I confused people by not making that a sample. But I didn't want to do strikeouts yet, because then it would seem like a decision has been made, and I didn't want that. So any questions? Yes.
When we're looking at the proposed board policy, the new one, which is really not a new one, it's the CSBA policy.
Right.
There are parts in red that have nothing to do with the tribal religious stuff.
Yeah, we're going to have to go back through. The thing that I am concerned about is the regalia and the gown color. Those
Ignore
are the two
that
things.
other stuff. It's not under
Unless,
discussion.
I mean, if people object to it or they don't like, whatever, it's open for discussion. So.
Can I just bring up a point when we talk about the regalia and the tribal, just to reproduce. When we get into the specifics and start trying to label and identify, once we open it up and say, you know, this, and this, there's a chance that we're going to forget something. We're going to leave it out. And by putting that in board policy, then now it's open for, I guess, interpretation and then having to defend it. I'm wondering if we could just be collectively say, and it has been suggested, ceremonial attire, period, and then cite the ed code. That's something that I think we could be doing and make it as uniform as we can, is by citing specific ed code. So then the interpretation is there with the legal backing. Does that make sense, that type of?
Yeah, I just did the ed code completely.
Which is perfect, and just citing the ed code and then not having to define it after that, because then what I'm saying is then for the reader, whoever is trying to, you know, abide by these rules, is they're seeing the specifics and then they're saying, well, wait a minute, what about this and what about this? Where as if we just say something like ceremonial attire, it kind of encompasses it all.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, other.
So I actually need to, yeah, we have a blue card.
Oh, sorry.
I'm going to reel this in, Wild West, and say.
Sorry, that was my fault. I asked for input. That was
so I have a blue card from Helen Mills.
Hi, my name's Helen Mills, and I'm a senior at Santa Rosa High School, and I 100% agree with the school wanting to be more inclusive with all of their students overall. But I think limiting our choices isn't going to be a way to go about it. Since my freshman year, this school has taught me that Panther Pride is two colors. It's black and orange. And I think that limiting that is going to be taking away one of our colors, one of our stripes. So I think that instead of taking away the option of one color, and that we should have, everyone gets to choose what color they want, whether it be black or orange. And that'd be easy to do if we just ask students beforehand and take a poll, which color would you like to wear for graduation? If it's an ordering issue, just have it done a little bit beforehand so that the organization is still all there. And that way you have people, personally like me, I don't want to look like a pumpkin on my last day of graduation. So I think that letting people choose what color they want to be is going to be a great way to be more inclusive while also keeping everybody happy with what they're wearing on their last day of high school. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, so back to the board. Yes. Questions, comments? I don't know who was, actually, I think Director Moreno might have had her hand up.
So I just wanted to like comment on like the choosing of colors. Like I think it should just like how Helen said, like anybody should choose like whatever color they want to wear. Cause I remember before I moved to Ridgeway when I was in Santa Rosa, it was boys wear orange and girls wear black. And I know like some females, like males, define as other things, and they would want to choose what they wanted to wear instead of saying you have to wear a specific color, like, oh, you have to go orange, or you have to go black, or you have to go blue, white. It's like, I feel like just letting them choose, as in like before graduation comes, would be better for them, because then they'll be like, you know, this is the color I call myself, and like they'll be happy instead of saying like, I don't want to wear this, like I don't even want to go to graduation.
Thank you. Others? Director McCormick?
So I've been approached by several faculty members, students that are very passionate about this and want to move towards board policy of just one color at each school, and having the schools be able to decide what color that is, but no distinguishing colors based on gender. I do appreciate what you said, with just thinking of it differently, which is having some color choices, but maybe separating the gender connection to that. And so giving some flexibility for the schools and the senior classes to figure out how they interpret that. So that's an interesting thought. I hadn't really thought about it. But I will say that at the higher levels, as you go up in education, you know, you go to graduation ceremonies at most universities and everybody's wearing the same color. However, there's some distinguishing colors based on what you're studying or what your emphasis is. And so then you get a different, you know, you're representing a particular field or industry or, you know, field of study. And so that's what you're representing. So everybody's in black, and then you wear your, what's the, tassel, thank you. Tassel might be a different color, or in the case of masters, like, yeah, sash or the hood or whatever. And so I think there's some wiggle room there, but I still, you know, from hearing from the people that we're really concerned about, it's just, and I love tradition. I'm a very traditional person. I love tradition of long-standing tradition of school colors and school pride, and I'm all about that. But I really like the idea of a senior class. I went to Ridgeway's graduation for the first time this year, and everybody was in blue, and I was like, oh, it looks really nice. And so I don't know, I kind of like the idea of like one color, but figuring out like the tassel or sash or something that could add for some individuality, but everyone still looks like a class. But I feel like we need to find some sort of middle ground where the board isn't, we're creating a safe environment for everybody that's honoring. This is a very special day, a moment to honor in students' lives. However, I don't want to get too down in the weeds of telling them board policy, like what they can and can't do. So I think, like you were saying, I think we need to be careful with the language. We want to promote something that is safe and open and honoring, but also allow for some creativity from the senior classes in the schools so that they feel like they still have a part in it too.
Dr. Moreno.
Sorry, I have a question. For a while, I've known that some schools are not allowed like decorate their caps. Why? Like, I've always wondered that.
Individual choice of the school, yeah. Yeah, some do, some don't.
Okay, thank you.
Director Medina.
Okay, so the first thing, just for me to be clear, so the current policy and the proposed policy, as we're sure, they're not actually, it's not actually the proposed, right? The red in this proposed one is meant to be what?
Just the two things that we want to add to the current policy is about the regalia and about the neutral colored gown. The regalia is state law. We don't really have a choice on that one. The neutral colored gown is what I'm bringing forth for the board for discussion. And just as Director McCormick spoke about people coming to you, I have two, President Close has two, maybe some of you all have. I've had the SRTA LGBTQ caucus come forward with a letter. We've had a couple of other letters from families, from students, from teachers, asking for this policy change to go to a neutral color.
So my question in relation to the tribal regalia or other adornments is there's the line about requesting permission from a principal at least 2 days before the ceremony. I'm wondering if in relation to some sort of like denial by the principal or something, is there some sort of like appeal process for students? And how might that work given such short time?
Yeah, that we could insert there that it would be the superintendent or superintendent's designee. The original language I found for this, I believe it was actually CSBA's sample. It was 3 weeks prior to graduation. So as you can see, I moved it to 2 days, but again, this is up for you guys to discuss.
And the other thing that, kind of just came up in relation to what Director Moreno brought up was the issue of like the caps and the decoration, which, to me, I see it kind of now, it's kind of become a thing. And I almost see it as a form of free speech. And I wonder, like the idea of leaving it to like site specific, if that's like, it being suppressed at some schools versus other, like, to me, it just kind of doesn't sit well. So I think maybe something to like review as we develop this policy, because I didn't get to decorate mine, but maybe I could have and I would have. So I just wanted to point that out. The other thing was in relation to, let's see, what was it? Oh, man. Oh, yeah. I was part of that very first class at Elsie Allen, and we got to choose a lot of things, school colors, uniforms, mascot name, things of that nature in my class. And I'm wondering if, if this is something where maybe we as a board could allow that option for like a one-time, the students get to vote and they get to choose what happens, whether it be like that model of like, I think what we're trying to get away from is the idea that there's a specific color based on a gender. And I think the model that's been presented of like, students get to choose, or maybe some alternative way of choosing what color that's not tied to gender, is something that I think would work. The idea of just one color, I think also works, but I think the idea of allowing it to be the choice of the students somehow, or it's like a one-time decision that happens one time and students get to organize a vote around their school and they decide for the generations to come. I think that's something to explore and that I think would be cool, and I like the idea of it. So I just wanted to throw it out there as well.
Thank you. Director Mariani. Wait, yes, sorry. Hard time keeping it straight tonight.
I totally love the idea of the students having a voice in whatever capacity we decide to move forward in, whether it's like from on a year-to-year thing about what Helen described, or if it's this kind of one-time event that Director Medina described. But I fully support that, and I know that that's not even what we're talking about, but I fully support the students having a voice in that decision making. I know this is just discussion. I just want to also publicly thank the SRTA LGBTQ Caucus for sending us an email and letting us know that this is an issue and something that we need to talk about, because it is something that we need to talk about. And I forgot to mention in my board member report that the SRTA LGBTQ Caucus is having a meeting actually tomorrow that's open to the public at Epicenter from 4 to 6 p.m. So if anybody's interested in going to that meeting and helping that group grow and be of support to them, that is happening tomorrow. But yeah, what I wanted to also echo is Director Sheffield's comment about kind of streamlining language. I do think that, I mean, sometimes it gets really difficult to kind of interpret and even read legal jargon and ed code and all of that. So the simpler, the better, I think, just so that those who are really looking at this policy, board policy, to do their work can do it a little bit more seamlessly. So.
Director Fong.
This is about, I think, safety and expression. Let's talk about safety first. Caps and gowns are to be a single color of the school size choice. Really appreciate that suggestion that student made about the kids choosing a color. I would just submit, however, that when it comes to gender and when it comes to non-binary, it's such a fragile, careful time when kids cannot express that easily. Young kids cannot, or 18, 17-year-olds cannot express easily, some of them, what's happening with them. And any kind of worry or any kind of comment, off the cuff comment or joke or something could be oppressive to them or could be injurious to them. So I would just caution that when we don't specify a color or the class chooses a color that they just are going to use, that's also a slippery slope for our students who are non-binary. So that's a safety issue, I think. I think also, Diane, in the part where it says tribal regalia, I think one word's missing there, and it says traditional tribal regalia in the ed code. So the word traditional, just reconsider that, I don't know. But I actually like the simplicity of ceremonial attire with just attaching the ed code. And a lot of it, well, it was in the ed code. Mm-hmm. It's just missing. And then maybe the principal at least 2 days before the graduation ceremony should go on the AR also, could be. But I also would submit that 2 days is a little tight turnaround.
But I didn't like 3 weeks either. I thought that was just, it was.
How about the Tuesday before Friday?
Yeah.
Graduate. I mean, as a principal, 2 days would be too much. Yeah. You know, 1 week.
Yeah, that's fine. I just put a number in there. I think there's a lot in BP 15127 in that actual BP that should be AR. If you look at it, there's a lot of details in there, but we can hash that out later. Okay, I'll turn it back. There was somebody else that.
Director De La Cruz.
I was going to say I'm really psyched that we're in compliance with state law with regard to traditional regalia and objects that kids want to have on them to respect where they come from. Helen, as you were talking, I was thinking that it would be super cool to have graduation gowns that were tiger striped. And really in line with, I know, pumpkin, tiger, panthers, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Panther stripes. But the comments that Director Fong made were ones that I was really also thinking about, is that there's a lot of kids who don't choose and don't want to choose and don't want to be forced to choose. And I can imagine how stressful that would be right before you're having to walk in front of all these people who are looking at you. And so I really love the idea of of also putting it to kids, but also really wanting to elevate voices that are gonna have a hard time being heard around this issue in particular. And then I think the final thing was, really wanting to figure out what the process is in line with what Director Medina was saying about appealing a principal's decision, about whether or not something is actually traditional tribal, whether or not it creates a safety hazard. I'm a danzante, and some of our headdresses are pretty big. So I can imagine like kids being like, I'm gonna wear my full on, I don't know. And so those are some of those decisions that I think can be really hairy right before we're all trying to get kids walking down the aisle to celebrate the end of their high school careers. Can we do a poll, even if we don't do like an actual vote and like an online poll throughout the high schools? Is that super complicated? SurveyMonkey, something kind of simple and online?
I mean, I think those are, totally possible things. But I guess I worry about what education goes into prior to making that poll. Right. It's state law to have a non-binary option on our registration forms. And so I have to kind of echo what Director Fong is talking about, and that was really the heart of the correspondence that I received, was about students who don't want to make a choice. They don't, and they shouldn't have to. And the other one was that they're not ready to talk about it, and that making a choice would then maybe share something that they're not ready to share. And then if they didn't want to share it, what goes on in their mind about having to make a decision that they don't feel good about. So those are the things that run through my mind as we look at this and what the board, So we can definitely do a poll, but I think that maybe some kids wouldn't know the difference between why we would want to go to a neutral and why we wouldn't. I think that the choice in the color, if we were further down the road where the colors didn't mean a gender, I think it would be possible. But right now, they're still they're kind of gender specific, is that right? I'm looking up there. Yeah, so the boys are one color and the girls are another color. And so at this, even for next year, there would be some pressure. Well, what color are you gonna be? Well, what color are you gonna be? I think for a student, so. Those are the things I asked the board to consider.
Okay, this is a good discussion. And I have one question before I give kind of closing comments, and that is, for this graduation, how soon do we need to make a decision?
Dr. Guzman, do we know when Jostens is appearing? We'll find out that timeline. I know that I indicated in some correspondence that really we're looking at 2 more board meetings, a first reading and a second reading. That puts us into September, like over a month to really look through and work this through. So it's not something like we can have to make like right now, but I will check with about the Jostens date.
Okay, I think that's important. Let's stay on this because I know this is something that Diane and I have talked about after the last few graduations, and then it gets sort of backburnered because we are dealing with all kinds of stuff, but it's really important, and for the reasons that Dr. Fong, or Director Fong, discussed, and I think we all agree that there should be some option. I appreciate Helen's comments, and I especially understand you're not wanting to look like a pumpkin on the day of your graduation. I get that. I wish I could redo my graduation picture so that I'm not in red. But I love the idea of people having a choice. I think that's a good idea. But in any case, I think we need to deal with sort of the safety issue first, and figure out a way that we can best honor our students and give them a voice in that. But let's do that so that we're not waiting another year. So let's make sure we understand the timeline that we're up against and come up with a solution as soon as possible. Okay, and just some feedback with respect to the presentation of the suggested changes. For me, what would be helpful is for it to be on one document. So whether that's inserting in brackets, and I think that we used to do that before, inserting in brackets in a different color or something, but on one document, the suggested changes, that would be
Your first reading will now be in the traditional strikeout form. And again, I apologize for the confusion.
That's all right. Director Medina and then Director McCormick.
And just in reviewing the current policy, and I think this goes kind of in the spirit with what we're doing, is also maybe reviewing the gender pronoun language that exists, he, she, his, her, that are already in it, maybe work on modifying that language, which might be something we would do throughout our policies, but at least this one specific to start.
Great point. Thank you very much for that.
Director McCormick.
I'm just a little confused because there's some other text in red. Are we talking about that later or now?
Disregard it. Just I was out of my mind. Just disregard it. Disregard it. Okay. The only two I'm worried about in the red right now are the law around regalia and the neutral colored gown.
Okay.
And that's the only thing that will be reflected in the policy, except for new non-gender specific pronouns and anything along those lines. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so, man, that's okay. Manny,
I just want to make a clarification. The SRTA LGBTQ caucus meeting is on Friday at 4, and it's not tomorrow.
I appreciate that. That is good information. And I also want to thank them for that email because, like I said, Dr. Kittimer and I have talked about this for a while, but that helped us make sure it got on the agenda. Okay. Thank you. So for anyone who didn't hear that and is interested, the SRTA LGBTQI+, caucus is meeting at the Epicenter Friday, September 6th, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. All are welcome. That's correct. Okay, very good. And with that, we will adjourn. Thank you. You're welcome.